He recalls he's always been a gambler, relying on luck and skill. He knows gambling's core is predicting chance and making the right call. The card flips, his chosen side wins, and he sweeps the money with a grin. He leaves, cash secured in his golf bag, confident in his winnings tonight. He finds his master's thesis forgotten in the car, a relic from his past studies. He recalls his graduate study days, dreaming to become a history professor. Napoleonic history was his study focus, yet fate led him more into gambling. He realizes Napoleon built many modern European systems in his reign, but all progress was undone by Napoleon's disastrous Russian expedition. He questions why Napoleon chose to invade Russia, seeing it as a fatal mistake. His vision glitches, silver letters appear before his eyes, urging him on. The letters challenge him to give advice to Napoleon, testing his fate. Suddenly, vision blacks out. He senses impending disaster as he raises his head. He wakes up drenched in sweat, shocked to be alive after the harrowing memory. A young woman enters, smiling warmly. He recognizes her as his mother, Josephine. She teases him gently about his nightmares and playfulness as a mother. Josephine grins, reminding him of her social life while he protests humorously. He accepts this family life bittersweetly, realizing his role as Napoleon's stepson. Jean bets odd or even with sharp instinct, gaining a winning streak. Thierry loses every bet to Eugene's clever intentions. Coins fall. Eugene leaves the tavern with one coin, declaring his chosen name. Eugene collides with a young pickpocket chased by a baker in the alley. Hippolyte scolds pickpocket for assaulting Eugene. Boy runs away fast. Cheerful Hippolyte offers Eugene hope despite harsh street realities. Eugene mocks Hippolyte's attempts to flirt with Josephine, teasingly. Hippolyte lifts Eugene, reminding him of his young age and precocity. The two talk about turbulent times and the possibility of France's collapse. Eugene cynically explains his bet on France's fall amid famine and hardship. Hippolyte questions Eugene on noble status and risks of speaking openly. Eugene reveals Beauharnais' noble roots and family's squandered fortune. Hippolyte agrees nobles are troubled, but his family's wealth is rising. They discuss harsh weather, recent floods, and looming food shortages. Eugene warns about bluffing dangers and the possible fall of the monarchy. Hippolyte reassures Eugene about the royal family's long-standing reign. Eugene gambles on a new empire rising, eyes turning south toward Corsica. Alexander drunkenly sings at home while Eugene watches quietly nearby. Alexander brags about his past victories and the special sword he owns. Alexander reminisces about fighting under Lafayette during the American Revolutionary War. Alexander encourages Eugene to become a soldier and join Brienne Military School. Alexander is interrupted by angry creditors banging on the door for debts owed. Eugene faces the banker Jacques Recamier demanding repayment from his absent father. Alexander visits Amélie at her large mansion seeking money and comfort. Amélie teases Alexander while praising the polite behavior of young Eugene. Frederick Somme, Kerberg arrives, scolding Alexander over his debts and troubles. Frederick laments his own mansion's massive debts and failed budget plans. Amélie suggests Alexander seek royal grace to erase his 6,000 livres debt. Amélie offers Eugene a chance to meet the queen as a prodigy to gain favor. Alexander happily accepts the plan, ignoring Eugene's doubts about timing. Eugene warns his father 1788 is no time for royal favors before revolution. Eugene contemplates his uncertain future as he reviews a mysterious timeline. Silver letters appear before Eugene, inviting him on a new path, the royal family. Eugene smiles softly, deciding to gamble and take the risk with the royal family. On March 3, 1788, Eugene leaves to begin his uncertain journey to the royal palace. Josephine greets Eugene warmly at the Pentamont Abbey in Paris. Josephine talks about returning to her warm, tropical hometown of Martinique. Eugene warns Josephine about her poor teeth from sweets despite her beauty. Josephine invites Eugene to come with her to Martinique despite the heat. Eugene challenges Josephine about money and her family's plantation wealth. Josephine recounts her family's sugarcane plantation spanning over 500 hectares. Eugene nervously reveals he might join the royal court as a page. Josephine asks Eugene why he doesn't stay in Paris instead of the New World. Josephine admits she feels the city is seething with unrest and danger. Hoche arrives carrying Hortense on his shoulders as Josephine greets him playfully. Josephine flirts shamelessly with Hoche while packing her things in the abbey. Hortense quietly asks Eugene if he will go with them to Martinique. Eugene asks Hoche for a promise to protect Josephine if he cannot be there. Josephine prepares to depart from Bordeaux harbor with Hortense and attendants. Hippolyte rushes to the harbor, gifting Josephine a protective protective wooden cross. Josephine kisses Hippolyte's cheek, blessing him to care for her child. Josephine tells Eugene to stay safe and promises she'll return. Eugene warns Hippolyte not to pursue Josephine romantically anymore. Eugene watches the ship leave and contemplates the looming Great Revolution. Eugene resolves to bet on the royal family despite the uncertain future ahead. In April 1788, Josephine begins her journey back to Martinique as history shifts. Alexander arrives at Versailles, excited to enter the magnificent royal palace. Alexander educates Eugene on Versailles etiquette with playful seriousness. They walk through the sprawling gardens toward the palace, eyes on the grand fountain. They arrive for audience and meet the Count of Artois, who welcomes them stiffly. Eugene greets the Count of Artois politely in Latin, showing his refined education. The Count of Artois jokes with Alexander, inviting him to play tennis to lose weight. King Louis XVI appears, wearing glasses and tinkering with a lock, bewildering Eugene. Eugene respectfully announces himself in Latin and English to King Louis XVI. Louis XVI questions Eugene about his English name and smiles warmly at his intelligence. Discussion is interrupted by Cardinal Brienne, stressing new taxes to the king. Count of Artois invites Alexander to play jeu de paume to lose weight. Eugene meets Marie, a bright young girl who guides him through the palace. Marie eagerly shows Eugene the Roman statue, calling it alive despite its age. Marie points out a fountain, proudly telling Eugene her father sometimes repairs it. Dog named Despy suddenly charges, forcing Eugene to shield Marie swiftly. Marie scolds Despy to stop, revealing the dog obeys her but bit Eugene by mistake. Maids rush in worriedly asking if Princess Marie is hurt, confirming her royal status. Marie introduces herself as the Princess of France, Madame Royale Marie-Therese Charlotte. Marie Antoinette eyes Eugene warily as Louis XVI introduces his son's lineage. Marie-Therese defends Eugene fiercely, pinching his cheek affectionately. Marie Antoinette commands Madame Campan to bring medicine and brioche quickly. Count of Artois asks Louis XVI if Marie dislikes Eugene after tennis. Princess Marie-Therese affectionately pulls Eugene's cheek, showing fondness. Eugene thinks on his swollen cheeks, realizing he must earn the queen's favor. Ernestine insists she is the queen's adopted daughter, not an orphan. Armand, queen's first page, challenges Eugene and demands respect. Eugene offers to play piquet, a favored card game, to prove his skills. Marie Antoinette suspects the Count of Artois incited the card game challenge. Eugene shuffles cards expertly, capturing Marie Antoinette's quiet attention. Count of Artois comments on the nostalgia of piquet, recalling royal youth games. Eugene uses skillful card tricks to turn Armand's bad hand into triumph. Spy barks at Eugene, provoking a rare smile from Queen Marie Antoinette. Eugene requests the Queen's grace in exchange for winning with the Queen card. Princess Marie-Therese cheers as Eugene wins, finally earning the Queen's favor. Marie Antoinette welcomes Eugene, declaring him worthy beside her daughter. Eugene's success marks his entry as royal page, 1 year before the revolution. Eugene stands near Marie Antoinette enjoying coffee in the peaceful Petit Trianon garden. Marie Antoinette offers Eugene coffee and softly acknowledges his service as a page. Princess Marie-Therese bursts into the fountain, inviting Eugene to join her playful fun. Eugene reluctantly gets thrown into the fountain by a gleeful Princess Marie-Therese despite polite protests. Queen Marie Antoinette claps and smiles warmly at the playful scene between Eugene and her daughter. King Louis XVI arrives, surprised to see Eugene soaking wet near the fountain at Petit Trianon. King Louis jokes about scolding the princess and asks Eugene about his recent victory in games. King gifts Eugene a valuable pocket watch as a token of appreciation for his cleverness. Eugene rides his pony tiredly, complaining about his daily commute between Versailles and Paris. Chaos erupts as screams fill the streets and people run fleeing from a fierce wolf in Paris. Eugene bravely stops his pony and jumps off to protect a child trapped in the wolf's path. Guard Lazard Hoche arrives, shooting the starving wolf and rescuing Eugene and the child. Hoche explains no one in Paris helps victims. It's a ruthless city even with dangers like wolves. Robespierre arrives shouting at the indifferent crowd about injustice and the suffering in Paris. Robespierre demands taxes from the clergy and nobles to save starving children from wolves. Hoche chats quietly with Robespierre about the tense state of France and coming disaster. Robespierre warns of looming revolution and financial collapse, worrying both Hoche and Eugene. Hoche carries the fainted girl found after the wolf attack, with Hippolyte offering to help. Julie Bernard awakens at the Beauharnais home, surprised and thankful for Eugene's aid. Julie explains her connection to Madame Recamier and troubles with bond trading in Paris. Eugene reassures Jacques shock Recamier that Julie is safe after the wolf attack. Recamier discusses bonds and debts with Eugene, curious about his true motive. Eugene asks for British government bonds, baffling Recamier with this bold request. Recamier suggests Eugene seek royal favor, a worthless but tradable token for financiers. Eugene sullenly contemplates his limited options while scribbling in the palace study. Princess Marie-Therese visits Eugene, teasing him and questioning his scribbles. Marie-Therese offers Eugene the Lanot-Rent national bond as a token of aid. Eugene visits Archbishop Brienne to discuss the royal family's useless American bonds. Brienne despairs over the national bonds from America, seen as worthless to the crown. Eugene proposes taking the useless bonds to create a slush fund for King Louis XVI. Eugene shows Recamier a special bond, surprising the seasoned financier with knowledge. Recamier explains the bond's history and Washington's signature, affirming its authenticity. Recamier recounts the American Revolutionary War bond debt and France's crippling finance. Eugene and Recamier meet the Duke of Orleans, seeking support to exchange the bond. Duke of Chartres points his sword at Eugene, warning him about speaking reckless words. Eugene calmly tells the Duke that he needs this bond to survive risky political times. Eugene hints the Duke's subversive plans and warns him about fleeing with no resources. Eugene claims the bond will ease the Duke's potential exile to England or America. Duke agrees to pay half the bond's value. Impressed by Eugene's confident pitch, silver coins pile up as Eugene earns his first major income and key influence. Eugene plans to invest 100,000 livres wisely before the revolution erupts. Eugene recommends investing in England's Barings Bank to seize opportunity. Madame Recamier agrees to broker the investment and asks for a different fee. Madame Recamier requests Eugene to protect Julie's future with his success. In Paris, Eugene meets banker Francis Baring amid street riots and unrest. Francis Baring proposes risky bond deals, trusting in Eugene's promise. Gunshots start outside as the royal guard suppresses rioters brutally. At Versailles, Princess Marie-Therese admires Eugene's bond-selling skill. Queen Marie Antoinette and Count of Artois argue about Necker and finances. Eugene gains new royal bond sales. Queen gives 1 million livres commission. Eugene warns Princess Marie-Therese of the hard times looming ahead. Ippolito counts Eugene's growing silver coins, and Alexander plans politics. Alexander vows to run for estates general as the noble Beauharnais heir. Alexander excitedly anticipates glory as estates general convenes next year. Ippolito learns about Freemasons and the revolution's brewing danger. Eugene decides to bring Josephine from Martinique before chaos spreads. Princess agrees reluctantly that Eugene must fetch his mother from danger. Eugene warns Armand Gani to avoid dangerous patriot faction gatherings. Eugene laments society's failure as a pickpocket boy is beaten to death. Eugene orders Ippolito to prepare ship and meet with Hoche for coming storm. Paris is in chaos as the Third Estate demands change, streets burning with anger. Duke reveals his plan to use the estates general to overturn the country's order. The Duke interacts with Camille Desmoulins amid the rioting crowd outside the carriage. The Duke calms the crowd with empty promises, then leaves as the royal guard arrives. Princess Marie-Therese and Madame Campan weep over the crown prince's death at Petit Trianon. The queen vows to protect her children amidst the rising chaos outside Versailles. Eugene and Hoche face the restless Paris crowd as the king promises no massacre. Hoche agrees to leave the military and join Eugene to save Josephine in Martinique. Camille Desmoulins rallies citizens at Café de Foy to take up arms against the troops. The German dragoon commander orders his troops to block the Champs-Élysées against rioters. Desmoulins urges the crowd to storm the Bastille to acquire weapons and munitions. King Louis XVI, anxious and sleepless, questions his generals about the unrest in Paris. The king and nobles hear that the Bastille has fallen. The Duke of Liancourt reports Paris is lost. The queen consoles the princess and urges Eugene to be brave as revolution erupts. The king surrenders to the National Assembly after the fall of the Bastille. Princess Marie-Therese questions Eugene about her safety amid the upheaval. The queen assures Eugene and Marie of safety, urging courage and hope for return. Eugene gathers trusted soldiers and friends to sail for Martinique as revolution erupts. Marceau, disheartened by Bastille's fall, warns Eugene about the chaos to come. Hippolyte complains about the heavy coins while Eugene prepares to depart for Martinique. Eugene advises on scurvy prevention as the voyage to Martinique begins. Prepare to depart despite Eugene's father likely opposing the journey. Eugene's ship San Maria sets sail with cautious plans for Gibraltar stop first. Hosu questions the Gibraltar stop, surprised by the risky British territory plan. Eugene reveals his connection to banker Francis Baring enables British convoy use. Gibraltar, banker Baring secures rich escort from Baron Hotham's fleet. Baring offers £20,000 to escort Eugene's ship safely across dangerous seas. Horatio and Hotham debate war memories yet agree the escort job promises profit. At the Hotham escort office, Eugene asserts his noble lineage to impress his escorts. Hippolyte jokes about Eugene's flattery while Horatio mocks French aristocrats. Francis Baring gently rebukes Horatio for his disdain of noble clients like Eugene. In Martinique, Josephine inspects farm troubles, unaware of growing slave unrest. Josephine returns home where her mother Claire scolds her for being late and worried Hortense clings to her. Felicite warns Josephine and Claire about the slave rebellion as flames flicker outside. The family flees in a carriage as angry slaves pursue through the forest paths. Armed soldiers arrive just in time to block the pursuers and aid Josephine's group. Governor's office, Eugene and Hoche discuss the rebellion and evacuation plans. Eugene proposes using British merchant convoy to safely evacuate refugees from Martinique. Horatio Nelson, confident and playful, vows safe passage for Eugene's noble family. Eugene reunites with Josephine in Martinique just as the slave rebellion erupts. Nelson commands British ships through a tense harbor under rebel attack. Governor Damas greets Admiral Hotham entering the rebel-torn hostile port. Hoche urges the refugees aboard as rebellion chaos closes in. Hortense falls, crying out in pain, risking panic in evacuation. Eugene offers Hortense sugarcane to calm her, stopping her tears. Nelson jokes about Eugene's care for children, others suffer seasickness. Josephine emerges from cabin weary. Sailors admire her despite her fatigue. Josephine worries about France's chaos. Eugene reassures with low tone. Eugene hints revolution's outcome while showing trusted allies Hoche, Hippolyte. Josephine hugs Eugene tightly, proud of how much he has grown. Sudden cry warns of Barbary pirates. Nelson calls everyone inside swiftly. Nelson declines Hotham's warning, eager to confront the aging pirate threat. Surcouf maneuvers the ship, but Eugene rushes out ordering full sails up. Nelson demands full sails. Hotham yells warnings from far escort ship. Hotham notices pirate ships lack cannon fire, realizing no gunpowder aboard. Nelson fires grapeshot while Eugene takes over the swivel gun with courage. Eugene defends family firing the cannon. Hoche pulls him back after battle. Nelson applauds Eugene's intuition and courage against the pirate threat. They exchange witty banter, sealing a new friendship amid the sea battle. On this winter day, Eugene claims his first naval victory alongside Nelson. Eugene arrives in Marseille, greeted by the city's lively revolutionary crowd. Eugene recognizes the sans culottes, fervent revolutionaries occupying Marseille now. Eugene explains the Jacobins' rise, comparing them to British political parties. Nelson points out the political upheaval, calling France's future interesting. Eugene settles accounts with Surcouf, offering a hefty bonus for services. Surcouf vows loyalty, impressed by Eugene's generosity and leadership. Antoine de Damas joins, eager to help amidst France's chaotic upheaval. Eugene proposes creating Société de Beauharnais to expand trade using the ship. Antoine nervously accepts role as president, adapting quickly to new world. Hortense jumps down from the ship, joyful to finally step onto solid land. Josephine warns Hortense to be careful, fearing the port's dangerous unrest. Hortense runs fast through the chaotic port, evading Eugene and guards behind. Hortense collides with revolutionary soldiers patrolling the port militia. Napoleon intervenes, stopping the soldier and defending Hortense and Eugene. Napoleon reprimands the soldier, insisting revolution protects the people. Napoleon notices Eugene's knowledge, questioning how he knows his name. Josephine rushes in, relieved and worried, capturing Napoleon's full attention. Napoleon silently acknowledges his feelings for Josephine, the married beauty. Napoleon stands flustered, unable to speak in front of Josephine's family. Josephine introduces herself with poise as Napoleon stammers awkwardly. Hoche arrives, tall and imposing, adding tension to the awkward meeting. Napoleon wonders if Hoche is Josephine's lover, while Hortense questions her mother. Eugene explains Josephine's Eugene's divorce as Hortense asks who their mother will marry next. Eugene suggests returning to Paris, but Napoleon cannot follow due to other plans. National Guardsmen rush in angrily, accusing Eugene of being a troublemaker. Eugene bribes the guards with silver coins, stopping their attack instantly. Philippe leads guards retreat, grabbing coins and fleeing quickly in confusion. Hoche jokes with Josephine after Eugene's decisive handling of the guards. Josephine notes Eugene's sharp impression. Eugene says Napoleon must be remembered. Antoine and Nicholas arrive, reminding Eugene of unfinished business at the port. Eugene welcomes Antoine and Nicholas, prepared to move on with their trade plan. Napoleon runs away embarrassed, thinking of Josephine as his heart stirs. Louis Antoine mocks Napoleon's infatuation, offering beauties in Stuttgart. Napoleon vows to claim Josephine and her children if she remains single. Eugene realizes he must decide Napoleon's fate and his own intertwined future. Josephine reaches out her hand. Napoleon kisses it, stirring feelings silently. Napoleon flees quickly as Hoche teases Josephine about winning another admirer. Josephine praises Eugene's strong impression, hopeful about Napoleon's return. Paris is restless. The Count of Artois' mansion stands empty and cold. Eugene blocks Hippolyte's flirtation attempts to keep Josephine safe and calm. Eugene arranges care for Josephine and leaves for his important work in Paris. Eugene discusses the revolution's turmoil with Hoche aboard a Paris street carriage. Eugene tells Hoche about upcoming military and social shifts after nobles flee. Eugene offers Marceau a role helping lead their financial venture amid upheaval. Alexander returns, furious over Eugene's solo journey and business plans. Eugene formally introduces Marceau as vice president of Banque de Beauharnais. Eugene reveals money withdrawn from Recamier Bank for the new Banque de Beauharnais. Alexander greedily accepts money as Eugene explains its risky political purpose. Eugene explains financial insurance plans amid brewing revolutionary instability. Eugene meets banker Recamier at a Paris cafe to discuss financial help. Recamier explains the risks of assignat bonds amid churchland confiscation. Outside, revolutionaries chant slogans against nobles and traitors of nation. Recamier and Eugene discuss the political forces and factions shaping the assembly. Robespierre emerges in the square, drawing attention as a rising revolutionary star. Damas listens to gold coin sounds as smuggling profits increase steadily. Hippolyte confirms tobacco smuggling deal with merchant Revelin at the cafe. Damas prepares assignat bonds for shipment, trading with the Hope Bank abroad. Francis Baring rides a hackney carriage through Paris to visit Banque Beauharnais. Baring discusses Banque Beauharnais' recent rise and calls with the coachman. At Banque Beauharnais, Eugene and Baring strategize about bond issues and crashes. Eugene predicts a market surge before the financial crash of 1790's assignats. Baring excitedly agrees to invest £100,000 in Eugene's risky plan. The gamble begins to multiply money through short-term stock speculation frenzy. Recamier sells French East India shares bought cheap after monopoly ends. Eugene predicts stock rise to 1,000 livres, promises Recamier future profits. Crowd throws sewage at priests and nuns refusing the revolutionary oath. Ippolito teases Eugene about Josephine's new salon amid revolt tensions. Hortense greets Eugene warmly in Josephine's luxurious but messy mansion. Mirabeau notices Eugene, recalls the reputation of a young gambling prodigy. Eugene discusses loyalty and revolution with Mirabeau at the salon. Mirabeau introduces Eugene to Count Fersen, a key royal ally. Fersen asks Eugene to fund the royal family's escape to Austria. Eugene provides a secret check from the Dutch Hope Bank for escape funds. Fersen gratefully accepts financial help, pledges to keep it secret. Ippolito reminds Eugene that only he can track secret royal escape funds. Young Princess Marie-Therese struggles to erase insulting graffiti on palace walls. Marie-Therese confronts Eugene angrily, accusing him of betrayal. Marie bursts into tears, clinging to Eugene after accusing him of abandonment. Eugene promises to protect the princess no matter what the future holds. Eugene and Fersen plan secret funding for the royal family's escape. Ippolito warns Eugene that tracking royal funds is his secret task alone. Eugene and Ippolito debate the risks of the king's planned escape. Eugene explains the impossible odds of the royal family's escape route. Mars and colleagues watch Eugene carefully reveal secrets about the escape. Mars questions Eugene about the king's likely destination for escape. Eugene reveals the Duke of Orleans as the key to the royal escape plan. The Duke of Orleans returns to Paris with caution and family advice. Marceau pledges to protect the Duke's estranged wife during his escape. escape. The Duke plans to flee northeast to Varennes despite warnings he ignores. Dragoon Captain Romerf reports missing the Duke to Lafayette and Alexander. Eugene arrives unexpectedly with a dangerous plan to prevent chaos. Eugene demands to arrest the king to split public support strategically. Lafayette agrees with Eugene, planning to arrest the king before chaos erupts. Eugene smiles, knowing his plan to prevent bloodshed is in motion. In Josephine's salon, Mirabeau collapses from stress during a tense discussion. Duke of Orleans prepares to flee as Mirabeau's death shakes the court. Marceau assures the Duke of safety for his estranged wife during escape. The Duke ignores warnings and decides to head to Varennes with his party. Jean urges Lafayette to arrest the king first to control rising unrest. The royal family rushes to escape Paris as the Duke of Orleans flees abroad. The Queen insists on dignified escape with an extravagant carriage despite risk. The royal family moves for asylum in Vienna, hoping to save their dignity. Soldiers block the royal carriage. King Louis faces arrest by National Guard. Lieutenant Hoche explains the Duke of Orleans fled, signaling royal betrayal. Despite the Queen's protests, the National Guard arrests King Louis with force. King Louis is taken into custody while Count Fersen escapes and Queen is dragged back. Jean and Lieutenant Hoche discuss the king's capture and growing danger. Jacobins gather at Robespierre's home to debate the king's arrest and future. Desmoulins objects to killing the king while Saint just pushes for a republic. Robespierre confirms no order to kill yet but urges caution about king's escape. Robespierre instructs Desmoulins to involve Danton in demanding the king's abdication. Desmoulins warns about risks of unrest but Robespierre insists on tactical moves. News of the king's arrest shakes Parisian markets and unsettles Jacques Lecamier. Eugene explains the king's detention is a shift, not imprisonment, calming Lecamier. Lecamier warns Eugene that hurting royal pride may cause harsh backlash. A sharp-eyed Joseph Fouché arrives to discuss plans with Eugene and Lecamier. Eugene reveals his plan to Fouché, spread rumors to boost Lafayette's image. Eugene predicts Lafayette's resignation and upcoming riot, asking Fouché to act. Eugene tasks Fouché with shaping public opinion to protect Lafayette's reputation. A crowd gathers at Champ de Mars demanding suspension of royal power now. Lecamier questions the radicals as Eugene observes the growing tension nearby. Danton's booming voice rallies the crowd, fueling their revolutionary fervor. Eugene notes the demonstration size smaller than expected thanks to his secret actions. Lecamier warns the danger as a nobleman in fancy clothes is attacked by the crowd. Inside Parliament, leaders clash over riot, police, and use of force against citizens. Bailey protests Robespierre's call to depose the king amidst heated debate. Mayor Bailey calls for brute force to disperse rioters. Dumouriez prepares army. Danton, Brisset, and Desmoulins rally crowd against troops with angry cries. Dumouriez orders troops to fire on the crowd, escalating the violent conflict. Lafayette arrives on white horse, confronts Dumouriez and urges soldiers to protect citizens. Lafayette pleads for peace, holding a fallen man's body as bloodshed continues around them. Marceau incites the crowd, rallying them to support Lafayette and back away from violence. Eugene watches from afar with Fouché, witness to his gamble's successful outcome. Eugene declares the game won but predicts harder struggles await with Assembly's rise. Eugene celebrates Lafayette stopping the massacre and saving Paris citizens. Eugene explains Lafayette led the National Guard and prevented the shooting orders. Marceau snaps fingers, noting Lafayette survived what once would have shattered him. Eugene tempers excitement, explaining the ongoing economic and political turmoil. The revolution's root is famine, drought, and looming bad harvests in 1791. War looms, and Lafayette lacks the strategic judgment to become supreme ruler. Eugene believes Lafayette could still become a hero by uniting constitutional monarchists. They discuss factions emerging, moderate Girondins and radical Jacobins in Paris. Eugene doubts King Louis will accept constitutional monarchy or flee again. Montagnards gather in Jacobin Club, fearing Lafayette may return royalists to power. Robespierre claims crisis stems from foreign powers, not the king's indecision. Robespierre says king feared treason, avoided allying with Austria for that reason. Danton trembles as he realizes Austrian invasion is imminent if king remains indecisive. Robespierre asserts Jacobins must lead if war becomes unavoidable to protect citizens. Saint, Just, and Desmoulins distribute printed declarations warning of royal threats. Saint just proclaims war threat, Brisset supports fight, Barnave urges caution. Barnave cautions against haste to avoid war, Brisset insists war defends revolution. Robespierre declares war necessary to fight monarchy and protect freedom. Brisset proposes war to protect the revolution, crowds cheer loudly in in response. Mayor Bailey rushes in with news. King Louis caught fleeing, shocking the room. Alexander curses foolish king. Robespierre grins. Revolution's decisive hour nears. King Louis paces alone in the temple tower, imprisoned and isolated. King Louis recalls the letter revealing Queen Marie Antoinette's secret love. The king remembers the betrayal, his failed escape, and his imprisonment. Inside the National Convention, Robespierre demands the king's execution. Moderate Girondins oppose immediate execution. Debate intensifies. Saint just rises and insists the monarch must die for France to live. Eugene watches the intense debate with worry, sensing the king's fate. Marat erupts, demanding the king's death to unite the revolutionaries. Outside, angry Sands, culottes shout for the king's execution loudly. Lafayette pleads to hear the king's final excuse before judgment. Robespierre agrees to hear the king's defense, knowing he cannot save him. Eugene visits King Louis in the temple tower, bearing grave news. Eugene tells the king he must die to save the queen and children. King Louis struggles to comprehend Eugene's harsh words and truth. Eugene reveals his actions stopped the king's escape for France's survival. King Louis surrenders, writing a will with Eugene's assistance. Hippolyte brings poison to King Louis, who prepares for his final moments. King Louis drinks the poison, trusting Eugene to protect his family. Eugene breaks down quietly, overwhelmed by the grim necessity of his act. Guard rushes in shouting news. The king has died from poison tonight. Eugene steels himself. His struggle to save the queen and princess remains. In winter 1793, Napoleon returns to Corsica amid cold winds and uneasy news. Lucien warns Napoleon that King Louis has committed suicide, shocking him deeply. Napoleon ponders the king's suicide, predicting it will change public opinion drastically. Napoleon warns Lucien that sympathy for the king now upends the revolutionaries' plans. Napoleon muses on political plans as Corsica resists his authority and war looms. Paris, Saint just demands the queen's death amidst war and political chaos. Saint just warns France faces ruin without harsh measures against royal supporters. Danton resists, citing the king's will and doubts about killing the queen. Robespierre weighs the plan, deciding on strategic military and political moves. Saint just storms out, vowing to lead the queen's execution in pursuit of revolution. Eugene meets Armand in snowy Paris, proposing a dangerous plan to save the queen. Armand struggles with hatred for the queen but recalls her kindness from his past. Eugene reveals his plan to rescue the crown prince briefly during the queen's trial. Although skeptical, Armand agrees to help, trusting Eugene and Hippolyte's support. Eugene explains the mission: bring the crown prince to the queen's trial despite great risk. Saint just asserts that killing the queen will mark a new era, gaining Robespierre's nod. Danton leaves the council in frustration over the queen's trial and political strife. Robespierre tasks Auguste to recruit military allies after the queen's trial ends. Josephine shivers in cold Paris, concerned about catching a cold. Josephine worries about expensive medicine as Hortense shares salon gossip. Josephine enters the Revolutionary Tribunal court, filled with concern. Josephine sees her ex-husband Alexander among the spectators and confronts him. Alexander warns Josephine about the danger, but she insists she came for the queen. Josephine spots Eugene and calls out, happy to see him at the trial. Josephine explains public sympathy for the queen has changed recently in Paris. Judges enter and begin the trial of Marie Antoinette, sparking tension. Radical prosecutor Hébert accuses the queen of dreadful crimes, including incest. Eugene disrupts court by dropping iron, drawing all attention instantly. Judge Herman softens, recognizing Eugene, the talented son of General Beauharnais. Eugene accuses jailer Simon of abusing the crown prince in court. Armand presents the crown prince to the court, trembling but present. Eugene reveals the crown prince's whipped back, shocking spectators deeply. Josephine screams in horror seeing the child's wounds. Audience erupts in outrage. Eugene steps on the crown prince's foot, causing him to scream out loudly. Marie Antoinette breaks down and tries to run. Daughter and Eugene rush to calm her. Sympathy for the queen grows as tears flow. Silence falls across the courtroom. Eugene boldly demands justice, questioning the verdict's truth in court. Josephine's urgent cries inspire the crowd to demand the queen's salvation. Judge Herman yields to the crowd's will, and Robespierre silently approves. Court rules not guilty. Marie-Therese hugs Eugene amid applause. A courtroom reporter sketches the triumphant scene before photography existed. Alexander angrily confronts Eugene over saving the queen in wartime. Eugene argues war has already begun despite his intervention for the queen. Alexander is stunned by Eugene's bold understanding and defiance. Eugene warns that the the execution of the queen threatens all nobles next. General Lafayette arrives and commends Eugene's courage and wisdom. Eugene credits Lafayette for shifting public opinion through careful influence. Josephine protests sending Eugene to war. Hortense anxiously asks if he will die. Eugene gives Josephine contraception, warning her with a mischievous smile. Josephine scolds Eugene but shows deep concern and embraces him tightly. Eugene entrusts his business to Recamier and bids farewell to Julie and Hippolyte. Hippolyte jokes with Eugene about married women. Eugene threatens him playfully. Eugene declares he will choose his battlefield. Hippolyte and Marceau agree eagerly. Robespierre meets Eugene, warns of danger, but grants choice of battlefield. Eugene claims battlefield experience. Hoche supports Eugene's courage. Robespierre signs appointment, naming Eugene second lieutenant for Toulon. Eugene travels by carriage south. Hippolyte complains but accepts fate. Marceau jokes about going with Eugene. Hippolyte accepts despite fear. Princess Marie-Therese arrives on horseback to say heartfelt farewell. Marie confesses her resentment and pledges to follow Eugene to hell. Marie suddenly kisses Eugene before galloping away on her horse. Eugene returns to carriage. Hippolyte and Marceau cheer his heroic send-off. Explosion throws troops into chaos as Eugene arrives in battle, torn Toulon. Hippolyte panics seeing a friend torn apart. Eugene urges calm to survive. The Union Jack flies over Toulon Cathedral, signaling British control of port. Silver notifications warn Eugene of imminent death from cannon fire nearby. Eugene pulls Hippolyte to safety just as a cannonball explodes where they stood. Eugene wakes in a ruined house with Hippolyte after their unit is wiped out. Sergeant Junot surprises them. Eugene points pistol, wary but curious. Junot explains forced disbandment of their unit with a cheerful smile. Junot shows Eugene how to requisition supplies from fearful civilians forcibly. Eugene pays a silver coin to the farmer, causing Junot to tease him playfully. Junot flustered as Eugene jokes about Josephine and his taste in women. Silver emergency alert signals a new cannonball attack. Eugene acts fast. Napoleon arrives personally, harshly criticizing Eugene's chaotic performance. Napoleon complains about poor command. Marceau supports his artillery tactics. Marceau praises Napoleon's pamphlet, The Supper at Beaucaire, warmly. Napoleon and Marceau bond over Republican ideals while planning battle strategy. Napoleon clashes with General Carteau over artillery placement and fortress assault. Carteau refuses to change plans, focusing on courage over artillery tactics. Eugene offers money to buy cannons, stepping into battle planning decisively. Carteau rejects Eugene harshly as he tries to join the battle planning. Eugene presents a valuable bank bill to fund cannons from nearby armies. Napoleon promises to re-enlist retired artillery officers to man the borrowed cannons. Madame Carteau slaps her husband to calm his rage and tell him to listen. Sergeant Junot commands farmers to surrender food without bloodshed. Napoleon watches conscripted retired artillery officers reluctantly dragged away. Napoleon insists the key is to capture the strategic Cairo Heights hill. Carteau scoffs at Napoleon and refuses to give him infantry troops. Eugene tricks Carteau into ordering Major Dillard to engage the enemy. Carteau orders cautious attacks to threaten enemy without heavy losses. Carteau grows frustrated as the enemy strengthens the fortress on Cairo Heights. Dillard reports his failed attacks after following Carteau's cautious orders. Auguste Robespierre arrives and confronts Carteau, accusing him of incompetence. Robespierre revokes Carteau's command and appoints Degommier as successor. Robespierre elevates Napoleon to chief of staff with full decision power. Napoleon thanks Eugene for the bold gamble that secured his new power. Napoleon vows to follow through with his plan in the legendary siege of Toulon. The siege of Toulon begins, setting the stage for Napoleon's first major campaign. Napoleon commands the artillery with fierce determination at the siege front. Eugene explains Toulon's crucial strategic value to Hippolyte at the bay. A nearby artillery shell explodes, nearly hitting Eugene and his friends. Napoleon and Junot remain calm amid explosions, discussing battle plans. Eugene reflects on the weight of history while Hippolyte remains skeptical. Eugene explains the vital role of Toulon's fleet for France's future. Eugene warns Marceau and Hippolyte of an incoming shell to avoid danger. Napoleon orders artillery advances, showing bold strategy amid chaos. Eugene teaches Hippolyte about new artillery crossfire tactics. They discuss General Degommier's risky but vital decisions for artillery. Infantry officer Charlot leads the charge up the high ground with force. Marceau warns Eugene to retreat, but Eugene sees a key opportunity ahead. Eugene insists on pressing the attack despite despite Hippolyte's protests. The trio aims at British Commander Charles O'Hara, seeking to capture him alive. Charles O'Hara, wounded, laughs bitterly but decides to surrender to Eugene. Napoleon praises Eugene's capture of O'Hara and plans his promotion. Elite artillery unit led by Marmont arrives, supported by trusted aide Duroc. Napoleon declares the final recapture of Toulon before Easter 1793. Eugene feels uneasy, warning Hippolyte about the fleet still in Toulon harbor. Eugene vows to protect Toulon's fleet despite the risks of battle. Eugene discusses rapid events in Toulon, noting history is changing fast. Eugene salutes Napoleon and proposes the Marie-Louise seizure operation plan. Napoleon reflects on Eugene's trust and nervously authorizes the risky operation. Napoleon approves Eugene's plan and urges protection of the French fleet by all means. Eugene leads 100 special forces to infiltrate Toulon amid fierce crossfire from three sides. Hippolyte curses loudly at the deadly cannon fire and the dangerous crossfire around them. Junot complains about babysitting Eugene, but Marceau trusts the boy's luck in war. Marceau explains war as gambling and expresses confidence in Eugene's undefeated streak. Marceau confidently follows Eugene despite Junot's doubt. Toulon is near now. Eugene's unit reaches the star-shaped fortress inside Toulon, cautiously advancing. Eugene warns Marceau about enemy plan to burn the French fleet and armory. Marceau realizes the threat of fire ships planned to destroy the French Mediterranean fleet. British and Allied troops march in, ready to burn the armory and fleet despite weak quality. Eugene orders soldiers to load muskets in 3 rows, ready to hold off the enemy. Soldiers fire muskets as British troops appear. Battle erupts with volleys of gunfire. Hippolyte panics briefly as cannonballs roar overhead, then steadies his aim. Marceau leads the charge as Eugene's company pushes deeper into Toulon's defenses. Napoleon commands artillery barrage from afar, focusing fire on Little Gibraltar. William Sidney Smith orders soldiers to burn down the entire port swiftly. Sidney explains the strategic reason for burning the French Mediterranean fleet's port. Sidney warns Catilla that the French focus artillery fire on Little Gibraltar's fortress. Shelling from Napoleon's artillery causes panic. Sidney remains composed despite threat. Sidney takes a bullet in the chest but stays standing until collapsing quietly on the docks. Sidney's fall breaks the command, and Catilla orders British-led troops to retreat immediately. Eugene's company sees the enemy fire ship rushing toward Toulon's fleet's dock. Eugene sets the boat on fire with a torch and pushes it forward toward the enemy fire ship. Eugene throws the torch into the fire ship, then jumps into the water to safety. Junot, Marceau, and Hippolyte cheer loudly, celebrating the fire ship's destruction success. Eugene floats exhausted on the sea, holding the Union Jack as a sign of victory. Napoleon commands troops to advance after the Fort Mulgrave finally falls. Marceau approaches Napoleon, urging him to wait, but Napoleon insists to move now. Napoleon spots Eugene approaching, bearing the defeated Union Jack flag proudly. Napoleon solemnly accepts the flag, affirming Eugene as a true soldier and hero. Napoleon names Eugene the first flag bearer at Toulon, marking legend and new soldier. Eugene stands strong with the flag as soldiers cheer. Toulon falls on Easter Day. April 1793, the Revolutionary Army moves with fierce intent despite Easter's peace. The National Guard faces turmoil. Trained soldiers replace unready militia in battle. Eugene protests harsh arrests but defers when Napoleon signals to stand down. Napoleon insists Eugene not interfere. Harsh revolutionary order must be obeyed. Radical representatives on mission order harsh executions to suppress Toulon rebellion. Auguste doubts the lack of trial, but Barras dismisses law for swift revolution justice. Barras and Freron demand ruthless purge to secure revolution's survival in Toulon. Eugene and Hippolyte enter City Hall. Barras eyes Eugene with unsettling interest. Auguste listens quietly to Eugene, impressed but conflicted by soldiers' plea. Napoleon arrives, proposing conscription to save the prisoners from mass execution. Auguste endorses Napoleon's plan. The young officer's fame grows with promotion rumors. Napoleon faces opposition but is supported by military officers entering with force. Freron lashes out, but Lepoip restrains him, reminding of Eugene's powerful backing. Barras and Freron reluctantly concede as Napoleon's military order seals their fate. Napoleon warns Barras that military discipline will prevent any uprisings or trouble. Napoleon addresses prisoners in Toulon Square, offering them choice between death or army. Napoleon praises Eugene's bravery to inspire prisoners and turn royalists into soldiers. Prisoners choose enlistment over death, lining up eagerly to join the Revolutionary Army. Paul Barras objects vehemently, but Napoleon assures control through military discipline. Nicholas, a grateful father, thanks Napoleon for saving his family from the massacre. Napoleon reveals Eugene's promotion to lieutenant colonel, showing deep trust in him. Farmers confront soldiers over unpaid requisition slips amid wartime hardship. MC displeased by the military ignoring compensation for requisition supplies. Hippolyte warns MC about Freren's brutal purge spreading across province. MC reflects bitterly on revolutionary purges and their toll on civilians. Junot brings MC a letter from Princess Marie-Therese with urgent tone. MC carefully reads multiple, increasingly urgent letters from Princess Marie-Therese. Hippolyte jokes about the princess's possessiveness while examining a banker's letter. Hippolyte explains Eugene's banker reputation to a surprised Junot. MC plans to write a reply quickly amid trading difficulties with England. MC meets naval officer Bruis, a tired former prisoner and noble captain. Bruis expresses his desire to retire after long war service as MC listens. MC offers Bruis work to absorb loyalist naval officers into new business. They discuss the blockade and the need for smuggling to sustain Mediterranean trade. MC reveals plans for a bank and a munitions business to capitalize on wartime demand. Bruis asks why MC specifically chose him for this risky, secretive venture. MC hints at connections like Lafayette and a secret Freemason society behind the plan. Bruis agrees to join, asking if there are sailors ready to be recruited locally. General Napoleon promotes MC to adjutant before departing for Marseille. MC accepts his new role and pledges to protect Napoleon and his family. MC explains his plan to start a new banking and smuggling business in Marseille. In May 1793, MC and Napoleon prepare to journey to Marseille together. Napoleon travels slowly to Marseille with his close adjutants and Eugene's team. Napoleon talks about his Corsican family and his younger sisters with pride. Junot jokes about Eugene's letter, teasing him about its secret sender. Marmont admires Hoche's victory and contemplates upcoming battles on the Rhine front. Napoleon explains why the Rhine front is a difficult battleground requiring a novel strategy. Eugene suggests Italy as a strategic detour, surprising Napoleon's adjutants. General de Gaumier welcomes Napoleon to Marseille as he prepares to depart for Spain. Gaumier warns Napoleon to stay away from politics despite his rising military career. Eugene cautions de Gaumier about the dangers of the Pyrenees front and guerrilla ambushes. Napoleon invites everyone to dinner at his house after the welcome gathering. Napoleon's family in Marseille excitedly prepares to welcome his return home. Family gathers outside to greet Napoleon, noticing Eugene traveling with him. Letizia greets Eugene coldly, doubting his noble status during the welcome dinner. Eugene hints at using a bribe during dinner to ease tensions with the family. Eugene gifts Letizia a diamond ring, softening her hostility at the dinner. Letizia formally honors Eugene by giving him the best food at the family meal. Junot attempts to charm Pauline, sparking playful banter with Hippolyte and Eugene. Pauline watches Eugene curiously, suspecting him to be the knight from the princess's tale. Eugene senses a shift in Letizia's feelings as the family dinner atmosphere improves. Eugene wakes in a new room, disturbed by a bee's sting on his hand. Eugene reflects on the bee as Napoleon's symbol of diligence and continuity. Ippolito wakes Eugene, teasing him as Joseph arrives at their boarding house. Lucien bluntly tells Eugene that Napoleon will never marry Josephine again. Eugene requests Joseph's legal help to open a bank branch in Marseille. Ippolito praises Eugene's skills as a gambling and financial prodigy. Eugene reveals his spoils of war to persuade lawyer Joseph to support his plans. Joseph introduces Eugene to Pierre Collot, the new banker taking over the Barings branch. Pierre doubts Eugene's youth but listens due to his powerful backing and letter. François Marceau endorses Eugene as a capable aide and banker to Pierre Collot. Collot accepts Eugene's credit but warns Marseille's unstable economy complicates business. François de Bruix arrives to announce a new smuggling trade for Eugene's bank. Lucien angrily confronts Eugene about his influence on his siblings' loyalty. Eugene mocks Lucien's choice of revolutionary nickname, calling it childish. Eugene offers Lucien a chance to meet Robespierre, sparking hope and surprise. Lucien grudgingly agrees to observe Eugene, while Hippolyte comments on Lucien's pride. Eugene reflects privately on the true challenge, reuniting his mother with Napoleon. In Marseille, Eugene opens a bank on Cannebière Street bustling with traders. Marceau worries about soldiers running a bank, but Eugene assures Napoleon supports it. Eugene explains the revolution's true danger is a looming civil war in Vade. Marceau asks who will rebel and why. Eugene points out devout farmers harmed by revolution. Louis Tournette questions Eugene's plan amid chaos. Eugene asserts his leadership. Marceau hopes Eugene won't just become a banker. Eugene smiles, confident in finance. François Clary, a struggling trader and Joseph's acquaintance, seeks help at the bank. François explains his large trading business is blocked by British blockade and city authorities. Eugene warns that city official Frerin targets Clary for royalist tendencies. Eugene formally introduces himself to Clary, revealing his dangerous reputation. Joseph reacts with surprise to Eugene's past and his dangerous political status. François de Bourrienne arrives, confirming Captain Surcouf's skill for smuggling. Eugene offers smuggling help via Bourrienne to restart Clary's business despite the blockade. Bank manager Collet enters anxiously to warn Eugene that Etienne Clary will be arrested. Etienne Clary is seized by soldiers. His family pleads desperately to halt the arrest. Joseph appeals to soldiers in vain. Philippe insists on obeying Frerin's orders. Eugene arrives armed, confronts and scares off soldiers, enforcing Frerin's arrest order. Marceau wonders if Eugene's intervention will cause trouble. Eugene trusts Napoleon's power. Etienne, Julie, and Desiree thank Eugene for saving Etienne from unjust arrest. Desiree recognizes Eugene from a newspaper. She calls him Knight of the Princess. The Clary mansion buzzes as Desiree struggles to serve hot soup for guests. François Clary discusses a military factory with Eugene and Joseph at dinner. Eugene reveals a plan for a military factory complex to supply weapons and munitions. Clary doubts the safety of the business due to friction with Frerin and his military ties. Eugene suggests removing the obstacle, hinting at a solution to Frerin's harassment. Dinner, Desiree asks how Eugene became known as the Knight of the Princess. Eugene reveals his role in helping Marie Antoinette during her trial to amaze Desiree. Desiree asks about Napoleon as Eugene describes him as young, handsome, but ruthless. Eugene warns Desiree to keep Napoleon's secrets, catching her hand as she stands. Soldiers led by Frerin barge into the Clary mansion, accusing them of anti-revolutionary acts. Eugene reveals Joseph's connection to Napoleon and alerts Frerin of their alliance. François reluctantly thanks Eugene while fearing Joseph's lowly status and family burden. Eugene presses Clary to accept Joseph's marriage to Julie to protect the family. Julie quietly admits her feelings for Joseph despite the unexpected sudden proposal. Eugene reflects on swift revolutionary marriages and plans another with the youngest Clary. Eugene proposes linking Desiree to another young general to block Napoleon's original plan. Desiree reacts with shock and blush to the talk of early marriages and suitors. Frerin storms the mansion, accusing the Clary family of anti-revolutionary acts and interference. Eugene confronts Frerin, revealing Joseph's high status and his engagement to Julie. François fears his family's ruin but reluctantly accepts Joseph's proposal to Julie. Eugene explains Hoche's planned marriage, surprising Ippolito with details. Eugene clarifies Hoche's fiancée and Adelaide Dessau and the arranged match. Eugene tells how Hoche abandoned Josephine after imprisonment to forget dark memories. Ippolito admires Josephine, sparking Eugene's playful threat over youthful memories. Ippolito updates Eugene on Hoche's defense of Dunkirk and promotion to general. Hoche questions fate as he avoids cannonballs on Rhine front battlefield. Discuss rumors of Dumourier's disloyalty and lack of campaign success. Trabat suggests mobilizing more troops, but Hoche refuses to rely on politics. Trabat mocks political favoritism in military promotions, mentioning Napoleon. Hoche calls Napoleon's rise a counterexample to corrupted politics in war. Hoche laments the feudal battlefield and wishes Eugene had insight for victory. Hoche receives Eugene's letter inviting him to Marseille amid war turmoil. Trabat questions Hoche's sudden willingness to leave front for marriage call. Hoche accepts Eugene's call, revealing the promise to marry a soldier's daughter. Hoche ponders Eugene's knowledge of his past and the fragile battles ahead. Napoleon angrily confronts Eugene about calling Hoche, his rival, to Marseille. Eugene boldly retorts, asserting his authority and mocking Napoleon's insults. Napoleon shouts that Hoche is his competitor and questions Eugene's choice. Damas arrives at Marseille. Disappointed Hoche is away from his new wife. Eugene explains the Beauharnais cartel plan to Damas over coffee. Damas learns he will be general manager of the Beauharnais corporate alliance. Eugene introduces the organization of trade, manufacturing, and military supplies. Damas questions Eugene about the cartel's military supply plans. Polly and Frelet cross the border, uneasy but welcomed by Brienne. Brienne introduces Polly and Frelet as promising technicians to Joseph. Joseph recognizes the two as skilled technicians despite their humble appearance. Brienne mentions Napoleon's trust in Eugene despite his youth and eccentricity. Moss observes Polly's awkwardness and expresses doubt about working with outsiders. Eugene reassures Damas and motivates Polly to start work on muskets. Hippolyte presents the Ferguson rifle to the group, impressing all present. Hippolyte loads and fires the Ferguson rifle, demonstrating its rapid fire power. Eugene warns of the rifle's cost and need for a cheaper model from Polly. Polly eagerly accepts the challenge to develop affordable breech-loading muskets. Eugene announces Polly as chief engineer of the new Borner munitions factory. Eugene receives a mountain of letters from Sergeant Jean Gomes in Marseille. Sergeant Gomes complains about the volume of love letters he must deliver daily. Ippolito explains collapse of France's royal postal system after the revolution. Eugene learns the French postal service is paralyzed with no organized mail delivery. They discuss the failed private postal business of Pierron de Chamus in France. Eugene says post business is key for intelligence gathering, not just profit. Eugene reveals the royal family-controlled mail to censor letters in the Cabinet Noir. Napoleon inspects the Patrick rifle and questions its breech-loading design. Napoleon learns from Juno about Eugene's proposal for a new postal military unit. Napoleon asks who could command the postal unit. Juno and Marmont react. Eugene suggests Michel Duroc as a discreet commander for the postal unit. Napoleon agrees and considers seeking help from Salicetti for the postal unit. Sergeant Jean Gomes laments his long, hard postal route from Marseille to Paris. Marie notices Gomes's uniform change and asks about his role in the postal unit. Gomes explains the new postal unit replaces the collapsed Grande Poste in Marseille. Marie asks when Eugene will return to Paris, frustrated with his constant ventures. Gomes comforts Marie, explaining Eugene's absence and her safety in Paris. Gomes gives Marie a letter from Tournai with news of Eugene's recent activities. Marie scoffs at letters hinting at Eugene's interest in other women at his age. Marie impatiently wonders when Eugene will return as the postal unit delivers her letter. Eugene inspects the new postal unit training outside Marseille. Marceau commands his troops, confident in their progress with live ammo. Duroc whispers about clear chain of command under General Bonaparte. Eugene jokes about his youth and desire to hold a musket in the unit. Marceau reveals forced royalist privates serve among the regiment's ranks. Eugene and Marceau discuss the postal unit's role as a secret intelligence force. Marceau invites Eugene to review an important deal at Carlo's this evening. Eugene declines funds for munitions. He has other plans tonight. At the Bonaparte home, Letizia prepares a hearty dinner for everyone. Napoleon questions Eugene about high boarding fees amidst family tension. Pauline reveals the expensive Rose Bertin dresses delivered from Paris. Letizia weeps with joy over the unexpected luxury gifts for her family. Napoleon thanks Eugene quietly, sensing the sincerity behind his acts. Hippolyte suggests opening a clothing store with Madame Bertin in Marseille. Marceau bursts through the door, urgent to speak with General Bonaparte. Marceau requests a long vacation to save his childhood love in danger. Marceau's love Angelique de Mesle faces mortal danger in rebellious Vade. Jean worries Vade's turmoil is too severe for Marceau to save Angelique. Eugene resolves to go to Vade with Marceau despite great dangers. Napoleon questions Eugene's plan to form a postal unit for Vade warzone. Napoleon doubts Eugene's wish to go to Vade despite its risks and importance. Eugene explains the military postal service's potential across all French Revolutionary Army units. Napoleon questions how Eugene plans to finance the military operation in Vade. Eugene insists he has justification and plans to fund the mission personally. Eugene outlines the three major military fronts battling in the French Revolution. Napoleon states highest military rank is now Major General without King's favor. Eugene reveals the Revolutionary Army plans to increase to 1.2 million soldiers soon. Napoleon expresses disbelief at the army's massive growth plans and conscriptions. Eugene discusses the Vade as a major quagmire with up to 200,000 fighting there. Eugene plans to build a pro-Bonaparte faction amid Vade's civil war chaos. Napoleon asks Eugene how his ambitions relate to the general's future plans. Eugene explains loyalty within the military is key for Napoleon's rise to top rank. Napoleon smiles and finally allows Eugene's request for a 100-man deployment. Business partners worry about Eugene leaving Bornais cartel in Marseille alone. Pierre Collot assures Eugene of strong financial backing for the business plans. Surcouf and Bruix confirm breaking the naval blockade is possible for their fleet. Samuel Pauly reports unfinished prototype rifles, but progress remains promising. Eugene reveals secret weapon, 100 Ferguson rifles ready for the Vade campaign. Captain Duroc reports Bornais Special Company is formed and ready to depart. Eugene announces the mission's true purpose, rescuing Major Marceau's lover. Soldiers cheer enthusiastically for the romantic rescue mission in the Vade War. Eugene asserts their mission could save 300,000 lives in the Vade conflict. Lucien angrily confronts Joseph about Eugene's broken promise and Vade mission. Lucien claims Eugene made Napoleon successful, but Joseph refutes with caution. Pauline asks her mother Letizia why Lucien is upset over Eugene's trip. Eliza reveals Vade's rebellion as Pauline questions the fighting's danger. Stanislas Frerin arrives to greet Pauline, who secretly thinks of Eugene. Eugene demonstrates the Ferguson rifle's prone firing method to Marceau. Marceau asks about disadvantages. Eugene explains gas leakage issues. Duroc mentions the Girandoni air rifle while Eugene compares weapon pros and cons. Samuel Pauly arrives, revealing advanced equipment for the Vade operation. Marceau confirms training progress and urgency for immediate departure. Eugene studies maps with Ippolito, discussing Commander Kleber's role. Pauline enters late, leaving Ippolito and Eugene embarrassed in the room. Pauline asks Eugene if he will live or kill on this dangerous mission. Pauline teases Eugene about his romance and his plans to impress the family. Eugene offers Pauline a silver lock as a gift to win her favor. Pauline kisses Eugene on the lips, blessing his safe return as a knight. Ippolito scolds Eugene for betrayal after seeing Pauline's kiss. Eugene reflects on Pauline's heated kiss before departing for Vade battle. Eugene departs at dawn with Marceau, Ippolito, Duroc, leading 100 riflemen. Jean and Ippolito discover a church burned to ruins on their march west. Eugene learns food supplies are running low as troops set up camp in ruins. They debate risks of resupplying in Bordeaux amid regional rebellions and unrest. Eugene meets Fouché, Bordeaux's commissioner, who welcomes him with a calculated smile. Fouché counsels caution, warning the Vade is hellish, ripe with famine and violence. Eugene witnesses revolutionary soldiers brutally attacking unarmed farmers nearby La Rochelle. Marceau and Eugene confront Captain Desmaretz, demanding an end to the massacre. Desmaretz explains rebellion leaders died. The young Roquejaquilian now commands rebels. Eugene explains royalists serve Count of Provence, a symbol divisive to rebels. Eugene outlines plan to replace incompetent commanders with intimidation and force. Desmaretz is caught between duty and guilt amid brutal reprisals in Vade. Eugene convinces Desmaretz to separate men from women and children to ease tensions. Desmaretz agrees, and Eugene demands propaganda leaflets to sway local opinion. Colonel Thuret oversees imprisoning residents, conflicted as soldiers prepare fire. Marceau introduces Eugene's postal unit. Tension rises as guns are raised. Eugene reveals truth. Illegal massacres are not officially ordered by Paris. Thuret, overwhelmed and fearful, asks Eugene what he must do next. Eugene orders separate detentions and warns rebellion will soon collapse. Eugene arranges for propaganda leaflets to sway opinion and stabilize the region. General Kleber arrives to witness brutal drownings ordered in the Vade massacre. Kleber confronts Captain Richel, who defends executions as typhoid prevention measures. Rossignol arrives and reveals himself as new commander, unsettling Kleber greatly. Kleber learns revenge and massacres drive the savage actions in Vade. Temporary headquarters, Kleber laments the butcheries overwhelming the La Rochelle region. Kleber questions the importance of postal units controlling La Rochelle forces. Eugene arrives commanding La Rochelle Regiment. Kleber is shocked by his youth. Eugene declares his intent to replace the corrupt Vade commanders by force. To restore honor, Kleber agrees to Eugene's plan to defeat Rossignol first. Eugene uses La Rochelle printing presses to produce propaganda pamphlets in color. Hippolyte reads the red pamphlet accusing royalists of selling France to England. Eugene explains misinformation's power. Truth doesn't matter, belief does. Commissioner Julian uncovers rebel pamphlets spreading dark truths of repression. Julian confirms the massacre is real real despite propaganda claims of rebel deceit. Carrier rages at pamphlets accusing him of ordering gruesome massacres. Marceau confronts Carrier, demanding the propaganda not reach Paris. Carrier accuses British of inciting rebellion and urges full attack on royalists. Marceau and Eugene prepare to trap Rossignol and end his command swiftly. The young royalist commander disputes rumors of British aid to rebels. Lescure warns secrecy about English supplies supporting their rebellion. Roquejaquilian resolves to launch a full offensive despite limited resources. Lescure doubts plan without gunpowder. Roquejaquilian insists on boldness. Roquejaquilian declares a surprise strike toward La Rochelle coast instead of Nantes. Eugene consults Sergeant Elie while preparing to deceive enemies near Vade. Eugene explains his plan to mislead both allies and enemies about La Rochelle. Eugene reassures Marceau and Ippolito before the impending battle at Cholet. Marceau shows strong dedication to Republic despite personal feelings for loved one. Eugene describes the sovereignty voters hold in a republic like France now. Eugene reminds how many Vade citizens could influence politics if won over. Ippolito is amazed by the scale of potential support for Bonaparte in Vade. Marceau reports arrival near Cholet. Eugene promises success in 2 missions. Marceau trusts Eugene's gamble despite the dangers they face at Cholet. The Vade rebels prepare to defend Cholet against 50,000 government troops. Eugene notes the slow battle tempo caused by gunpowder shortages at front lines. Royalist cavalry raids striking Revolutionary Army's flank near Cholet outskirts. Eugene orders the postal company to dismount quickly and prepare volley fire. Rapid volley fire from Eugene's unit halts Royalist cavalry's charge unexpectedly. Noble cavalry commander La Tremoille panics and orders retreat after volley. Captain Demar rushes in with news of Royalists' surprise capture of La Rochelle. Eugene smiles quietly, knowing this blow finishes Rossignol's position. Danton meets banker Sabatier, who pleads for help to save East India trade. Saint just warns Danton about bankers, causing a tense exchange between them. Danton enters the Fleur Mansion hallway where committee members gather for meeting. Deputy Carnot reports army mobilization progress to the committee in the meeting room. Carnot explains shortages of guns, gunpowder, and crucial raw materials to the committee. Marat objects to involving Lavoisier in research due to his royalist tax collector past. Danton moves the meeting forward, asking Deputy Desmoulins for the latest war updates. Desmoulins reports anti-French alliances forming among European powers against revolutionary France. Robespierre arrives late, listening tiredly to Desmoulins' dire report on new alliances. Robespierre queries Desmoulins about countries participating in the anti-French alliance. Desmoulins names 8 countries, including England, as allied enemies of France. Robespierre declares the final battle inevitable and urges naval rebuilding efforts. Robespierre shares a grim report from Vade about mass genocide underway. Danton absorbs the burden of the terrible duties the committee must bear for France. Danton reassures Saint just that leadership opportunities await him soon in the revolution. Danton seals the deal with Sabatier for gold certificates to save the East India Company. The Committee of Public Safety stands as the core of power guiding revolutionary France. Saint just announces distribution of Julien's grim report to the committee. Danton reads Julien's report and reacts to mass drownings orders in Vade. Marat dismisses concerns, revealing his hardened stance on the Vade rebellion. Danton argues for justice while Marat stresses a swift military response. Danton reminds the committee that rebel voters are also citizens with rights. Auguste Robespierre declares the rebellion may be escalating. New insight. Action tensions rise as Auguste accuses Carrier of betrayal in Vade. Auguste presents the loss of La Rochelle as proof of Carrier's failures. Robespierre commands silence, asserting his dominance over committee tensions. Auguste explains the dire situation of Vade and the political factions involved. Louis Tournay arrives, delivering Major Marceau's crucial battlefield report. Auguste reads aloud Major Marceau's report, exposing Vade's loss of La Rochelle. Robespierre pauses the debate, commanding attention over Marat's hesitations. Robespierre states truth is secondary, only results determine outcomes. Robespierre decides to withhold punishing Carrier until facts are clearer. He acknowledges La Rochelle's fall as critical and calls for command change. Auguste presents Kleber as recommended replacement for Rossignol as commander. Robespierre sets a strict deadline of 3 months and full authority for success. Robespierre ends meeting, signaling a new phase for Vade's fate and navy. The Committee of Public Safety's decision reshapes history with new Vade leadership. Aware, no one knows their choice marks a turning point in Vade's grim future. future. Rossignol receives a sudden dismissal order from the Committee of Public Safety. Rossignol desperately pleads with Westerman for support but receives none. Deputy Carrier and new Commander Kleber arrive to change the leadership instantly. Kleber announces Rossignol's dismissal and imprisonment without sympathy. Rossignol is dragged away, abandoned by Carrier and refused aid by Westerman. Eugene celebrates leadership change and discusses new orders with Tournay and Marceau. Kleber praises Eugene's plan and asks about tactics to lure the enemy out. Eugene reveals a risky strategy to open routes and unite enemies with England. Kleber questions the gamble of the plan, though feels the need for a decisive battle. Eugene orders suspension of clergy's oath to weaken enemy morale and rebel strength. Kleber worries about the National Convention approving suspension. Eugene insists on victory. Eugene declares decisive strategy to force rebels into final battle at Machical. Kleber enthusiastically confirms operation and boasts about starting immediate action. Changed war tactics use bombardment to deceive enemies near Cholet's outskirts. Eugene explains Mainz Division's artillery experience gives them advance over enemy troops. Postal unit members spread pamphlets announcing suspension of clergy's oath in Vade. Ippolito worries about the risk, but Eugene trusts Kleber's ability to win soon. Eugene hints at a coming hero who will change the fate of this difficult war. Eugene reveals that Napoleon himself is the hero coming to make the Vade his stage. Eugene explains how setting the stage is vital for winning the war. Eugene details the bait, making Nantes look like a prize worth losing for. Eugene reveals the plan to let the enemy win temporarily at La Rochelle. Eugene explains the need for a sharper to cheat at this war gamble. Marceau quietly reads a letter about Angelique's fleeing from the war. Ippolito brings Marceau to examine Eugene's operational map cautiously. Marceau reflects how peasant soldiers scatter quickly under unexpected fire. Napoleon receives Eugene's operational map and reads an important letter. Napoleon notices his pro-Republic pamphlet on the back of the map. Napoleon deduces Eugene's hidden plan from the invitation on the map. Napoleon orders his troops to depart Paris early to join the Vade campaign. Ippolito marvels at Eugene's complex plan, finally grasping its depth. Marceau vows to find Angelique only after stabilizing the war in Vade. Marceau highlights peasants' bravery but points out their tendency to scatter. Junot expresses surprise seeing Eugene's bold operational map strategy. Marceau admires Eugene's fresh perspective despite being self-taught. Napoleon accepts the invitation, preparing to intervene in the Vade War. The Royalist White Army prepares to seize Nantes in a daring gamble. Roquejaquilian suspects a feint but agrees Nantes is worth occupying. Prepare for a three-pronged attack backed by English gunpowder. Tremoille warns of burst-fire units among enemy forces. Roquejaquilian doubts burst-fire muskets are real but weighs the threat. Tremoille estimates 30 burst-fire soldiers but doubts this number. Roquejaquilian plans to capture Nantes before Cholet falls. The Royalist White Army marches quickly, carrying only essential supplies. Jacques doubts the supplies' origin while Henri remains silent. Marie de Lescure cheerfully delivers bread to the marching soldiers. The Royalists reach the Loire estuary. Stofflet confirms Nantes is empty. Tensions rise as Stofflet objects to partnering with Charette again. Charette urges rapid shelling and pontoon bridge construction for the assault. Suddenly, explosive shells rain from the opposite direction, shocking Charette. Roquejaquilian shouts angrily at the surprise attack from the north. Revolutionary Army reveals its true position behind the Royalists' flank. The hard-won gamble is turned back as the revolutionary troops advance. The Royalist White Army faces the harsh consequences of Eugene's clever ambush. The army marches on foot. Hippolyte complains about the grueling trot. Carrier argues fiercely with Kleber about the danger of leaving Nantes unguarded. Kleber sends scouts despite Eugene's warning about revealing their position. Eugene suggests burning the forest using heated explosive shells to disorient the enemy. General Lecomte accepts Eugene's heated shot plan while Kleber demands a decisive move. Kleber orders the divisions to advance and prepare to fire amid the burning woods. Kleber commands all troops to prepare muskets, readying for battle amid the fire. Sudden gunfire from the enemy surprises Kleber. Soldiers start to fall unexpectedly. Eugene identifies a skilled enemy commander and orders concentrated gunfire. Gomi leads the Postal Special Company in a fierce burst of suppressive air rifle fire. Hippolyte asks about switching to muskets after the air rifles run out. Eugene says wait. Charette commands despite wounds. The rebel ranks begin to falter under fire. Charette hears the cavalry charge amid burning trees and shouts to defend defend the leader. Marceau's mounted infantry charge disrupts the rebels with musket fire from horseback. Marceau throws away the musket and shouts that the commander has fallen, breaking enemy morale. Kleber hears the charge and orders all troops to launch a bayonet attack. 30,000 revolutionary soldiers charge fiercely, surrounding the rebel forces. Roquejaquilian panics as his trusted leader Charette is confirmed dead. Lescure urges Roquejaquilian to shift focus to capturing Nantes city. Lescure reminds the rebels that Nantes is weakened by political turmoil. Roquejaquilian orders artillery positioned despite risk of friendly fire casualties. Friendly fire erupts as rebel artillery shells fall amid the melee chaos. Kleber commands a desperate bayonet charge to break rebel artillery fire. Lescure warns Roquejaquilian that their headquarters and families risk danger. Marie, Lescure's wife, insists on fighting and holding out for Stofflet's arrival. Roquejaquilian shouts that Stofflet's arrival will turn the tide of battle. Eugene and Ippolito analyze the battle, noting the commander is still alive. Eugene relies on his silver letter's power to predict battle outcomes precisely. Eugene fires his pistol at a charging peasant soldier, starting desperate fight. Kleber and Lecomte argue fiercely as bayonet fighting becomes chaotic melee. Carrier tries to flee, but a shell blast throws him violently into a tree. Kleber demands to know who fired the unexpected cannons from the south. Eugene announces General Bonaparte's arrival, fueling hope among the troops. Napoleon arrives with cannons from Bordeaux, joined by Fouché and Marmont. Napoleon shows Junot the power of new breech, loading rifles to disrupt rebels. With enemy lines broken, Napoleon prepares for the final decisive sortie. The Bluecoats begin their sortie, ready to crush the remaining Vade resistance. Continuous gunfire breaks the royalist morale. Their army begins to dissolve. Lescure urges Roquejaquilian to retreat, but the rear is engulfed in flames. Lescure commands his troops to form a line and fight desperately to the end. Napoleon's 1,000 Bluecoat soldiers approach, stunning larger royalist forces. Napoleon arrives with gunpowder and greets Eugene and Marceau amid battle. Napoleon asks Eugene about the plan to end the rebellion peacefully or violently. Napoleon shows reluctance to kill all rebels but awaits Eugene's solution. Eugene orders Hippolyte to fetch the megaphone from the main supply wagon. Fouché arrives with Bordeaux cannons, surprising Kleber and other officers. Fouché calls Eugene a financial prodigy. Commanders react with shock. Eugene and 100 men shout loudly with megaphones, breaking enemy noise. The royalist army and rebels stop fighting, confused by the powerful megaphone voices. Eugene warns rebels of harsh consequences if they don't surrender by sunset. Hippolyte anxiously asks Eugene if the rebels will surrender soon or fight on. Eugene hopes Roquejaquilian is sane enough to consider surrender. Roquejaquilian emerges alone to surrender, seeking to spare his troops' lives. Roquejaquilian kneels and surrenders, hoping to sacrifice only himself. The Corps 3000 royalist rebels surrender, ending the Vade rebellion early. Eugene becomes the terminator of the Vade civil war months earlier than history. Carrier roars for massacre, demanding all captured royalists die in Nantes. Eugene and Ippolito leave as Carrier rants about killing rebels immediately. Eugene worriedly explains the rise of terror and famine threatening Paris this winter. Napoleon jokes with Eugene about his age and sleep as they discuss the war. Napoleon laughs as Marmont and Junot agree with Eugene's praise of historical conquerors. Napoleon asks Eugene if he has a plan to save the captured royalists. Eugene explains his plan to pass responsibility to Paris, throwing the prisoners there. In the damp prison dungeon, Eugene visits Roquejaquilian, who is shackled and seated. Roquejaquilian recalls Eugene's past as the knight of the princess with a bitter smile. Eugene recounts Paris's harsh state and the misery commoners suffered before the revolution. Roquejaquilian values honor over life and contemplates the rebellion's bitter end. Eugene presents 3 deadly paths to Roquejaquilian, who reacts with shock. Roquejaquilian urges saving innocent women and elders fleeing mass death and despair. Eugene explains the revolutionary view of rebels as traitors, hated and despised. Eugene offers escape to London but warns guards will be executed as traitors. Roquejaquilian asks about the third option. Eugene reveals the trial with death as likely. Roquejaquilian agrees to the trial, shaking hands with Eugene in quiet resolve. A young woman, Angelique, is trapped by revolutionary soldiers in Vade. A black, uniformed squad, led by Sergeant Healy, rescues Angelique from the harassing troops. Healy advises Angelique to flee to Nantes, hinting at better chances for survival. Sergeant Gomes recognizes Angelique Angelique from a wanted poster, raising tension dramatically. Gomes mocks her connection to Marceau, revealing the soldier's true target. Healy orders his squad to announce Angelique's capture, signaling a successful mission. Massacres often stem from despair of the defeated, not only the victors. Carrier urges Westerman to act on plans for a new massacre to suppress revolt. Carrier believes killing royalist prisoners will ignite a new rebellion and cover past crimes. Carrier exploits Marceau's fiancée's royalist ties to fuel political manipulation. Westerman reluctantly agrees, accepting Carrier's brutal plan to kill prisoners. Eugene proposes making paper cartridges in prison to employ and control royalist prisoners. Kleber worries about gunpowder smuggling but trusts Eugene's reasoning on prisoner control. Napoleon arrives, announcing the urgent plan to escort prisoners to Paris for trial. Napoleon insists speed is vital and that the trial will be held in Paris immediately. Kleber hesitates, concerned about the fate of the remaining prisoners after the trial. Napoleon reminds Kleber about risk and urges moving quickly to save thousands of lives. Napoleon and Kleber exchange a decisive handshake, pledging mutual loyalty. Deputy Commander Lequille bursts in, alarmed about Carrier's forced prisoner removal. Lequille reports that Westerman is ordering prisoners to be thrown into the Loire River. Jean resolves urgently that they must stop Carrier's plan to massacre prisoners. Napoleon decides to join Eugene, declaring they must prevent the Vade massacre. Angelique and her family are dragged as prisoners toward the Loire River. Angelique protests her arrest, insisting she supports the revolution, not rebellion. Angelique desperately calls out for Major Marceau, her fiancé, near the prisoners. Marceau arrives alone and blocks the mass execution procession by Westerman's division. Angelique reveals herself, pleading innocence, but Westerman and Carrier accuse her of royalism. Carrier tries to frame Marceau as a royalist traitor to implicate Napoleon. Marceau is surrounded by Eugene's company. Kleber arrives to stop Carrier's massacre. Napoleon and Eugene arrive. Napoleon coldly challenges Carrier's accusations of treason. Napoleon exposes the flaw in Carrier's logic, invoking Robespierre's endorsement. Jean cuts prisoners' ropes, stopping Carrier's illegal drowning and mass murder. Eugene declares legal trial for prisoners and Carrier, exposing massacre crimes. Rocajaqueline rises, pledging support for Eugene and Napoleon before the crowd. Rocajaqueline calls the 3000 royalists to swear oath to protect Eugene and Napoleon. The crowd erupts chanting Viva Bonaparte, uniting royalists and revolutionaries alike. Napoleon, confused and uneasy, asks Eugene what's happening as support grows. Eugene confidently replies that the crowd now supports the general and himself. First Bonapartists are born, loyal supporters of Napoleon and Eugene in the Vade. Dumouriez orders a bold plan to seize revolution leaders in Brussels headquarters. Lescuyer warns Ferrand might betray them. Dumouriez dismisses doubts confidently. Dumouriez reveals his collapse after defeat incites plan to revolt with Austrian allies. Lescuyer remembers their agreement to replace old monarchy with constitutional king. Duke of Chartres arrives and joins Dumouriez's plan to seize Paris's leaders. The plan forms, kidnap Paris commissioners, revolt, then surrender to invading Austrians. Dumouriez proclaims creation of a new army to continue a different revolution. Saint just reports stagnation to Carnot and Bernonville overseeing the army's front. Carnot doubts Dumouriez's competence. Bernonville supports calling him back to Paris. Saint just presses urgency. Netherlands blockade threatens revolution's success. Carnot suggests Saint just suspicions explain why army stalled at Neerwinden. Dumouriez arrests Saint just and commissioners, claiming to defend the revolution. Saint just shouts at Dumouriez, condemning his betrayal and arrest of revolution leaders. Shots ring out. Lescuyer warns Dumouriez that Beauharnais and Davout arrive fast. Dumouriez curses Ferrand's betrayal and orders his soldiers to fight fiercely. Saint just breaks free, escaping with Carnot through shattered glass windows swiftly. Beauharnais and Davout arrive outside, surrounding Dumouriez's traitorous forces. Dumouriez commands a desperate breakout with Lescuyer and the Duke reluctantly obeying. Dumouriez escapes to Austrian camp, his treason shaking revolutionary France by 1794. Generals learn Dumouriez defected and fled to the Austrian camp. Generals argue about leadership after Dumouriez's treason unsettled everyone. Hoche recommends Jourdan for temporary command despite Pichegru's anger. Kellerman supports appointing a young general over senior officers to adapt quickly. Saint just arrives, ordering the arrest of Hoche to assert civilian control. Saint just appoints Jourdan as interim commander amid political chaos. In the Café mansion, Julie tells Princess Marie about the news of Dumouriez. Marie explains she has letters from Eugene Eugene, exchanging messages with General Hoche. Julie worries about Eugene being in dangerous vade, but Marie says he is victorious. Marie shows strong resolve to defend Eugene against revolutionary attacks in Paris. Eugene discusses new gunpowder technology enabling breech loading rifles with Napoleon. Eugene hopes to find chemists in Paris to develop mercury fulminate technology. Napoleon eagerly suggests visiting Eugene's mother Josephine after they reach Paris. Scouts spot Paris ahead. Soldiers prepare as an officer delivers urgent news. Officer announces that Committee of Public Safety summons Napoleon to Tuileries Palace. The defected Dumouriez scandal throws Paris into turmoil as Eugene arrives. Eugene predicts political chaos in Paris will erupt like volatile fulminate. Eugene brings Napoleon to Café Procope, seeking crucial information first. Recamier appears, warmly greeting Eugene and Napoleon at the café. Eugene and Recamier engage in witty banter. Napoleon looks confused. Napoleon asks Marcet about the strange talk, still confused about the scene. Recamier reports to Eugene the skyrocketing prices and unrest in Paris. Eugene confirms economic troubles and disrupted trade from Recamier's report. Recamier warns of deep troubles in the Committee of Public Safety headquarters. Eugene deduces responsibility, shifting after Marat and Danton's generals' betrayals. Napoleon asks what to do as Eugene suggests sending word to their connections. Eugene names Augustin Robespierre as their key contact in the political upheaval. Augustin accepts a tense meeting with Napoleon, showing courteous diplomacy. Eugene brings up collective punishment, shocking Augustin during their talk. Salicetti praises Eugene's manners, while Augustin contemplates harsh realities. Eugene explains Vendetta's logic as Augustin struggles to argue its validity. Eugene warns internal crisis requires harsh measures to prevent further chaos. Augustin reluctantly agrees, acknowledging Eugene's bold proposals for order. Napoleon stresses forgiveness over massacre as key to maintaining control. Augustin promises to discuss Eugene's ideas with Robespierre, his brother, next. Robespierre and Augustin meet secretly at Duplay's workshop for private talks. Robespierre expresses suspicion that Lafayette influences Eugene and Napoleon. Robespierre orders Augustin to signal the army to support Napoleon firmly. Robespierre raises stakes by entrusting Paris' safety to Napoleon's command. Saint just accuses military commanders of treason and calls for purge urgently. Danton argues fiercely against Saint Just's unilateral appointment of General Jourdan. Desmoulins asks about General Hoche's detention, questioning Saint Just's harsh orders. Saint Just explains civilian control principle preventing soldiers from appointing commanders. Saint Just warns Desmoulins that deputies alone can appoint commanders, not soldiers. Salicetti unexpectedly arrives, announcing victorious General Bonaparte's arrival in Paris. Danton enthusiastically suggests sending General Bonaparte to fight on the Rhine front. Marat angrily opposes Danton's idea, citing Bonaparte's desertion and rashness. Napoleon enters abruptly, silencing all debate with his calm, confident presence. Marat panics, questioning Robespierre's decision to summon General Bonaparte. Robespierre greets Napoleon calmly, treating him with unusual respect and familiarity. Robespierre about Eugene, recognizing the young soldier's bravery at Toulon and Vade. Robespierre announces Napoleon's appointment as Paris's chief of police, shocking the room. Marat protests Napoleon's low rank, while Robespierre insists on promotion to major general. Danton argues the chief of police appointment needs full committee consent, not Robespierre alone. Robespierre coldly exposes Danton's allies as problematic and undermining the cause. Robespierre gives Eugene epaulets, promoting him to colonel, solidifying loyalty. Eugene accepts promotion humbly, saluting Robespierre with firm resolve for the Republic. Napoleon takes full control of Paris's military and police, a younger history than noted. Josephine learns her son Eugene has returned quietly to Paris this year. Hortense jokes about executions while Josephine worries about Eugene's fate. Josephine recalls the time Eugene protected Hortense during the slave rebellion. Hortense mentions Eugene only writes letters to the princess, worrying Josephine. Josephine decides to visit Café Beauharnais to scold Eugene herself. Eugene discusses Paris unrest with Napoleon and Recamier at Public Order Command. Napoleon reveals Dumouriez's betrayal and defends Danton in the discussion. Recamier explains Dumouriez's dismissal following the defeat at Neerwinden. Eugene advises Napoleon to raise a personal guard amid rising turmoil in Paris. Napoleon decides to reorganize units, promoting his officers to face upcoming challenges. Napoleon tasks Eugene with joint command of the Postal Brigade for intelligence work. Recamier promises political funds funds to support Eugene and Napoleon's new commands. Eugene returns home to the quiet Café Beauharnais after a long day's work. The team debates who should travel to Marseille as tensions rise in Paris. Marie-Therese surprises Eugene by appearing at the Beauharnais residence. Marie-Therese insists on cleaning, showing her resolve to live as a bourgeois wife. Napoleon introduces himself to Marie-Therese and agrees to live at Beauharnais. Josephine bursts in determined to see Eugene, greeting Napoleon with warmth. Josephine warmly embraces Eugene and Napoleon, glad for their reunion in Paris. The committee debates Napoleon's appointment amid rising suspicion and unrest. Robespierre defends his choice with cold pragmatism to Saint-Just's outrage. Robespierre demands harsh purges in the military to prevent further betrayals. Carrier meets General Rossignol. Tensions over Vade prisoners simmer. Rossignol warns Carrier about royalist prisoners kept under lenient house arrest. Napoleon storms in with soldiers to arrest Carrier for the Vade massacres. Napoleon orders Carrier and Rossignol's arrest and warns of force if resisted. Carrier and Rossignol succumb to force and are dragged to the Conciergerie prison. At National Guard HQ, Eugene and Marceau discuss the volatile state of Paris. Marceau worries about rioting, fearing repercussions from radical factions. Communes, autonomous citizen groups, can rebel and must be watched closely. Eugene warns that if riots erupt, Napoleon will handle the violent suppression. They discuss harsh punishments for royalists to deter further uprisings. Eugene envisions exiling royalists to distant colonies to ensure peace. MC and Marceau enter the abandoned royal palace turned prison cellars. Marceau speaks of near capture and Angelique's safety, hinting at desperation. MC jokes about calling Marceau Madame now, Angelique's freedom confirmed. Marceau plans their wedding when peace returns, Angelique's resolve firm. Colonel Thoreau greets MC and Marceau with congratulations upon their visit. MC bribes a guard to open doors, Hippolyte hands over silver coins smoothly. Thoreau accepts his fate in prison, calling it a price to pay for past sins. MC tells Thoreau his punishment is exile to Martinique, a harsh New World colony. Thoreau expresses doubt, then reluctantly accepts the danger of his sentence. MC offers longer exile with chance to redeem at Louisiana, stirring hope in Thoreau. Roquejacqueline unexpectedly arrives, ready to join exile across the ocean. Roquejacqueline urges Thoreau to join him, united despite their past conflicts. Thoreau and Roquejacqueline clasp hands, embracing harsh exile as shared atonement. MC watches the former enemies unite, sending them to lead New World ventures. MC assures that exile offers hope. Marceau and Angelique share a quiet moment. Marceau vows to protect Angelique and rebuild peacefully once the war ends. MC contemplates history repeating, silently swearing never to repeat past mistakes. Exiles prepare to leave, facing harsh, unknown futures together across the sea. MC sends off the exiles, committed to shaping the future with hope and resolve. March 1794, Paris. Napoleon multitasks, reviewing documents and meetings fast. Eugene briefs Napoleon on deportation sentences, including Tourat and royalist leaders. Napoleon questions Eugene about Carrier and Rossignol's death sentences. Napoleon warns Eugene the purge may affect his father Alexander's fate. Napoleon jokes to Eugene about his mother's opinion of Alexander's neglect. An adjutant interrupts with news of a visitor just as Eugene faces awkward silence. Marie-Therese arrives for a rendezvous with Eugene, welcomed by humorous Napoleon. Spring in Paris, Eugene and Marie-Therese ride ponies for their rendezvous. Marie chastises Eugene about girls in Marseille. They tease gently between ponies. Eugene shares war hardships, stirring Marie's concern as spring softens Paris. Sudden street commotion breaks the calm as customers argue about bread doubling price. Eugene spots a fleeing thief and prepares to arrest him with a charged pistol drawn. Thief falls wounded. Eugene commands arrest while citizens scatter in shock. Marie hugs Eugene desperately, apologizing. He reassures her firmly but gently. Eugene pulls Marie onto the horse. They ride together to see a royal family contact. Eugene and Marie visit Armand Gani, a former servant living in squalor. Armand complains he can't join army due to suspicion. Eugene offers new chance. Eugene announces Armand's enlistment to the Beauharnais cartel liaison in Paris. Eugene explains the cartel controls money and arms, offers Armand a vital role. March 2nd, 1794 marks the founding of the Beauharnais cartel in Paris's secret base. Marie questions Eugene about his surprising actions in Marseille recently. Marie admits secretly asking Tournay for news about Eugene's work. Eugene assures Marie he will return from the battlefield every time he goes. Marie unexpectedly kisses Eugene, surprising them until Damas interrupts. Damas awkwardly introduces himself and cites the evening's big event nearby. Eugene sternly insists Marie deserves to know the serious news now. Damas winks while teasing Marie about her rising role in Eugene's plans. Eugene entrusts Marie to manage his Paris business while he expands in Marseille. Marie's face flushes as Eugene compares her role to that of a royal queen. Eugene reveals his secret weakness only Marie knows, deepening trust. Marie promises to protect Eugene's secret and asks what she must do next. Eugene signals to begin investment in a chemical factory to improve weapons. Lavoisier dodges stones and angry bayonets in a furious Paris street mob. Eugene rushes in to defend Lavoisier, claiming his innocence to the crowd. Despite the crowd's fury, Eugene insists Lavoisier aids the revolution with his research. Eugene introduces himself to Lavoisier as the revolution's Knight of the Princess. Lavoisier recalls meeting young Eugene, the royal family's clever gambling prodigy. Eugene explains his business transformations, impressing Lavoisier and Althusser. Lavoisier praises Eugene's talent handling gold, comparing him to Mozart. Eugene proposes a daring plan about death, exile, and business to the group. Chemistry is the cutting-edge science shaping the future of nations. Gunpowder, fertilizer, and power drive revolutions and industry alike. Eugene confronts Lavoisier, pressing him to choose his fate wisely. Eugene warns Lavoisier the rioters lead public opinion. Guillotine looms. Lavoisier sighs, conflicted by exile or execution. Eugene proposes options. Lavoisier insists he must stay and help the country fight the war. DuPont eagerly volunteers to help stabilize mercury fulminate explosives. DuPont ponders the difficult choice to leave for America or stay. DuPont fears losing Lavoisier, considers starting anew in the USA. Eugene offers capital and patents for DuPont to build a chemistry empire. DuPont signs the contract, pledging loyalty for the next decade. A surprise guest arrives. Princess Marie-Therese joins Eugene and DuPont. DuPont nervously pledges loyalty, worried for the princess's safety. Eugene explains the contract. DuPont leads company. Princess oversees it. DuPont excitedly accepts, pledging dedication to the princess and knight. Eugene secures the greatest chemical tycoon, launching a new empire. Danton discusses the return of the Banque de Beauharnais with a wary banker. Sabatier reveals a conflict over saltpeter smuggling and new gunpowder development. Danton challenges Sabatier on the logic of stopping new gunpowder research during wartime. Sabatier warns that if the East India Company fails, Danton will suffer consequences too. Danton faces Marat and Hébert, who urge him to join their conspiracy. Despite doubts, Danton drinks and sings loudly as he walks home alone. Danton arrives home, jovial with children, and gently teases his young wife Louise. Danton's joyful facade briefly hardens as he contemplates his enemies plotting against him. Danton summons his secretary Desclantine to arrange a meeting with General Bonaparte. Danton explains the faction's crisis to Desclantine involving Marat and Robespierre. Danton contemplates the need to seek the support of the Paris security commander. Danton writes a letter with determination amid rising political danger around him. A knock interrupts Danton's writing. Desclantine arrives with urgent news. Danton orders Desclantine to arrange a meeting with General Bonaparte immediately. Danton reflects on the turmoil engulfing Paris, poised on the brink of a coup. He grips his pen firmly, determined to control his fate amidst chaos and threats. He laughs bitterly, aware that survival requires ruthless alliances and sharp wit. Danton recalls Hebert's offer to join a popular uprising with Marat's backing. He disdains his critics but knows political enemies circle ever closer. Hortense enjoys the calm before storm, smiling brightly at a party. Rose Bertin arrives, famous fashion designer from the old royal court. Marie shares news of Eugene's project. Rose listens with keen interest. Armand rushes with urgent news about a new rifle detonator project. Marie denies involvement. Rose guesses Marie's role as benefactor. Napoleon arrives, escorted by Eugene and top security officers, to the salon. Hortense pouts, disliking Napoleon's rough and unsophisticated manner. Napoleon relaxes at the salon despite warnings from Marceau to stay vigilant. Adjutants discuss Eugene's mysterious upcoming announcement in the salon. Eugene and Marceau observe Lafayette and Brisset discussing revolution affairs. Marceau shows Eugene a new small metal cylinder, the percussion cap prototype. Alexander arrives unexpectedly, stirring whispers about his relationship here. Alexander greets Eugene, joking about Madame Paget's call and reconciliation. Josephine enters with Napoleon, proud hostess preparing to announce an event. Josephine warmly greets guests and introduces her children children and ex-husband coldly. Josephine announces her future engagement to Napoleon, surprising all present. Alexander reacts shocked, Eugene stunned, Napoleon and Josephine stay composed. Lafayette, Brisset, and Adjutant Junot rush to congratulate Napoleon and Josephine. Josephine clarifies it's only an engagement announcement, not marriage yet. Napoleon boldly vows to win Josephine's approval before the engagement ends. Danton bursts in, greeting Napoleon and Josephine, shaking the celebration. Danton demands Josephine answer his letter. Tension surges in the salon. Danton demands answers from Napoleon about the brewing Paris revolt. Napoleon accuses Danton of ruining the engagement announcement with his rush. Danton reveals a revolt is planned by Marat and Hébert in Paris. Security forces plan to report to Public Safety Committee and suppress revolt. Salicetti warns that Robespierre aims to purge Danton despite revolt plans. Danton admits his corruption and pressing need for survival in rebellion. Danton reveals the planned timeframe for the revolt during the Sans Culottides. Napoleon's team calculates the revolt date leaves little time to act quickly. Eugene warns Napoleon of the risk Robespierre will blame him for civilian deaths. Napoleon reveals his ability to see the weaknesses in others and situations. Napoleon states Robespierre's grassroots support is faltering, marking his weakness. Danton urges Napoleon to decide, asserting his own political power. Lafayette offers his political club's support if Napoleon takes action now. Josephine enters holding the family rapier, offering support to Napoleon. Napoleon accepts the rapier, ready to wield it as his own against the coup. Napoleon rallies his closest lieutenants to counterattack the Paris coup. The team shouts their allegiance loudly, ready for the decisive Paris battle. Napoleon prepares to lead his army and counterattack the Paris coup soon. Guillotine falls, severing the Duke of Liancourt's head sharply today. Jacques Roux warns Marat about suspicious silence in the public security forces. Hébert mocks the public security forces' weakness amid rising citizen unrest. Marat calls out to the desperate crowd, declaring the new aristocrats the enemy. Robespierre, calm but tense, reviews documents in Duplay's quiet study room. Saint just urges harsh laws to confiscate counter-revolutionaries' land. Robespierre coldly declares Danton will be sent to the guillotine soon. Robespierre spots sudden flames outside the window and rushes to investigate. Auguste bursts in urgently, warning that Marat has ignited a rebellion in Paris. Robespierre flees Duplay's house as armed citizen soldiers block the exits. Robespierre steps into Revolution Square, surrounded by 20,000 armed, torch-bearing citizens. Hébert mocks Robespierre as the citizens shout for bread and revolt tightens. Robespierre shouts about revolution being ruled by reason, not oppression or madness. Robespierre is shot by an armed citizen. Marat watches coldly from the crowd. Marat rallies the crowd shouting the tyrant is dead and to seize the convention hall. Robespierre collapses in front of the guillotine, his blood staining the wood red. Alexander tries to flee burning Paris despite soldiers blocking his path. Marceau explains the security forces protect key figures like Alexander during the uprising. Ignoring cautions, Alexander decides to reach the National Convention in the fiery streets. Alexander is shot in the leg. The militiamen mistake him as enemy and surround him. Alexander tries to claim he's a Republican soldier, but militiamen bayonet him fatally. Jean guards Camille Desmoulins after security forces rescue him from the militia. Desmoulins asks about the fate of Robespierre, anxious and fearful. Danton arrives, joking about his survival with Eugene and Desmoulins nearby. Napoleon demands official authority to suppress the uprising from Desmoulins. Salicetti informs Desmoulins his vice. Chairman role allows him to authorize force. Desmoulins takes responsibility. Eugene announces use of cannons to quell riots. Hébert leads 20,000 armed citizens to storm the National Convention. Marat senses betrayal as follow. Up citizen units fail to join the attack. Napoleon commands ambushes with elite security forces stationed across Paris streets. Napoleon orders loading of cannons while adjutants question its use against citizens. Napoleon justifies using cannon fire on rioters, declaring era of law will begin. Cannons fire grape shot into crowd. Rioters scatter in terror from iron hail. Marat shouts in anguish as Napoleon declares the uprising era is over. Napoleon commands the end of uprisings and the start of the rule of law. Salicetti explains the uprising and the state of the National Convention today. Salicetti reveals Robespierre's death and Marat's role in the rebellion. Danton rallies the assembly with a fierce speech calling for courage. Lafayette proposes the creation of a 5-member directory government. Augustin Robespierre grieves quietly as Salicetti consoles him him in the mansion office. Napoleon arrives, encouraging Augustine to join the new directory government. Augustine debates stepping down if Napoleon accepts becoming a director. Napoleon respectfully declines, stating his path leads to Italy for real military glory. Saint just bursts in, pleading to Augustine, who orders guards to detain him. Danton casually encourages Napoleon to achieve glory in the coming war. Napoleon accepts the challenge and prepares for the campaign in Italy. Eugene sits depressed. Hippolyte encourages him with a reminder about living fully. Hippolyte praises Eugene for giving him purpose beyond chasing women and frivolity. Napoleon enters, stirring Eugene from sorrow, with passionate words about family and dreams. Napoleon announces the formation of the new directory and the upcoming Rhine War. Napoleon grins, telling Eugene the glory battlefield is Italy. The campaign lies ahead. Napoleon commands Eugene to join him, sharing the glory of Italy together. Eugene replies, pledging loyalty with heartfelt Mon Napoleon as the chapter closes. Rain falls on Paris during Alexander's funeral at a former Jesuit church. Hippolyte points out Eugene's grandfather arriving among the mourners at the funeral. Marquis confronts Eugene, blaming Alexander and ignoring Josephine at the funeral. Hippolyte intervenes, defending Eugene and Hortense from their grandfather's harsh words. Josephine warmly welcomes Amélie, Alexander's former lover, to the funeral gathering. Amélie thanks Josephine and Eugene, overwhelmed by their kindness amid sorrow. At Café Beauharnais, Eugene gears up his allies for a move to Paris's new political phase. Eugene promotes Marceau to brigadier general despite past failures protecting his father. Marceau expresses heartfelt loyalty and gratitude to Eugene for his guidance and salvation. Eugene directs his cartel allies on military supplies and expanding operations to Paris. Eugene promises to repay his father's debts to Financier Recamier with interest. Discussion turns to new military matters, including the role of Captain Bruis and Surcouf. Eugene assigns Armand as sergeant and praises Tournay, uniting their military roles. Hippolyte pours wine and toasts the dawn of the Beauharnais cartel's new era. Damas raises his glass proudly, gambling on Eugene's promising leadership. Rectors appoint Napoleon commander of Italy, tasking him to defend the French border. Lafayette warns Napoleon to focus on defense, not victory, for Italian campaign. Napoleon declares his bold plan to conquer Italy, shocking the attending directors. Napoleon proclaims Eugene the idol of victory, his symbol for future triumphs in war. Lafayette asks for the campaign goal and Napoleon answers with the conquest of Italy. Only Eugene believes Napoleon's bold plan to conquer Italy will succeed at last. Napoleon marches with 1,000 men from Marseille to the eastern border of France. Polito reads news of the 3 stars, generals leading French forces. Eugene explains the 3 stars, Napoleon, Hoche, and Moreau, each leading a front. Junot asserts his knowledge of French military structure despite Napoleon's jest. Eugene notes many French generals are holdovers from the previous regime and unreliable. Eugene argues Danton favors new generals, giving rise to 3 young stars. Discussion turns to Hoche's rising command of the Flanders front and family ties. Napoleon praises Hoche as a reliable ally and notes their connection. Moreau receives Napoleon and Eugene at the Rhine front with a serious expression. Napoleon introduces himself. Moreau affirms the Rhine front's defense importance. Moreau stresses the need for defense. The Rhine is the strategic main front. Hoche arrives, sparking tension over battlefield strategy with Moreau and Napoleon. Hoche credits Eugene for protecting his wife Desiree on the dangerous frontier. Moreau insists on defending the Republic via Rhine defense, rejecting riskier plans. Napoleon rejects defense, only stance, demanding swift victory by striking enemy main force. Napoleon leaves barracks confident, doubting Moreau's understanding of modern warfare. Hoche praises Napoleon's bold gamble, recognizing the risk to empty Mainz and attack. Napoleon expresses desire to be the sun among the 3 stars as campaign begins. Napoleon's regiment heads south toward Nice to join the Italian campaign in December 1794. André Messina laments yet another commander change at the Italian post. General Serrier warns about Commander Bonaparte's political rise and past. Augereau bluntly claims the commander's identity won't change their fate. Messina laughs off politics and prepares to face the new command. Berthier arrives, inspecting supplies and unsettling the command with rumors. Messina probes Berthier about his inspection and the new challenges ahead. Berthier confirms the difficulty of solving supply issues despite clear problems. Messina acknowledges Berthier's insights and the political nature of the command. Eugene, now adjutant, delivers Napoleon's order to assemble battle at the drill grounds. Messina complains about conscripted soldiers' hunger and frustration at assembly. Soldiers grumble about lack of pay and meager food as morale declines. Napoleon enters atop a horse, addressing the tired soldiers with firm resolve. Napoleon bluntly admits soldiers are underfed and poorly supplied. His honest words about the harsh reality surprise and anger many soldiers. Suddenly, muskets and uniforms arrive, raising hope among the hungry troops. Napoleon promises victory in Italy, describing the wealth awaiting soldiers there. Messina recalls rumors of Italy's riches but has yet to see more than the coast. Napoleon roars a battle cry, inspiring soldiers to share glory together. Eugene watches Napoleon's speech, knowing victory alone will complete the mission. Joachim leads reckless cavalry across plains, ignoring warhorse warnings. Lannes warns Joachim of warhorse shortage and Dagomir's orders. Joachim boasts about being a hussar, though they lack such units in army. Captain Bessieres asks Lannes about Italian corps readiness and leadership. Lannes trusts friend Augereau's skill but worries about Italian army state. Joachim pushes troops fiercely while Lannes worriedly observes his wild command. Eugene tours Italian corps, overseeing supplies, while Junot boasts of cavalry glory. Eugene points out Grenadier unit to Junot as a better fit than reckless cavalry. Eugene meets Louis Lepic, former dragoon now leading a grenadier unit. Lepic explains Grenadier's role in launching preemptive grenade strikes effectively. Eugene proposes a horse grenadier unit combining cavalry speed and grenade use. Junot claims horse grenadier unit is manly but doubts horse availability soon. Eugene reassures horses will arrive soon, sent by Dagomir from the Pyrenees. Napoleon grants Eugene command of the new Italian Postal Special Regiment. Junot jokes about front lines while Napoleon warns on leadership roles. Messina arrives with news of Dagomir sending 3,000 light cavalry reinforcements. Napoleon and Eugene react excitedly to cavalry reinforcements arriving from Toulon. The Pyrenees cavalry races swiftly across the Alps, riding hard for Italy. Joachim Murat arrives first at Italian command, arriving loud and reckless. Division Commander Augereau reacts with surprise and suspicion at cavalry arrival. Augereau questions the need for cavalry in mountain fortress battles. Murat bursts forward recklessly, causing dust clouds and unsettling officers. Jean Lannes arrives to restore order and warns about Murat's wild nature. Murat meets Napoleon, riding wildly and startling him with reckless speed. Napoleon critiques Murat's reckless horsemanship, orders him to relearn riding. Napoleon assigns Eugene to tame Murat since Eugene knows horses well. Murat protests fiercely against taking orders from Eugene, calls him a brat. Despite defiance, Murat submits as Eugene prepares to tame the wild horse. Napoleon admits cavalry is auxiliary but stresses breakthrough power remains vital. Eugene requests Junot to join with a grenadier cavalry unit under his command. Napoleon approves Eugene's plan if Murat is tamed and put in his command. Hippolyte questions Eugene about taming wild Murat, doubting success. Eugene shares his plan to use rough strength to tame unruly Murat early on. The Pyrenees cavalry joins the Italian army under Eugene's command as Murat's subordinate. Italy is fragmented in 1795, with no unified national identity. Austria's veteran General Wurmser hears about France's plan to invade Italy. Beaulieu arrives to assume command of the Lombardy Defense Force. Wurmser instructs Beaulieu to prepare for possible French moves on Genoa. Italy's political division means the French face many fragmented enemies. Napoleon argues Italy is not unified, its regions are divided and hostile. Napoleon recalls Italy's history and the fragile Austrian-Sardinian alliance. Napoleon states that speed and surprise are essential for their upcoming campaign. Murat boasts loudly about taking Rome, ignoring Eugene's warnings. Eugene considers disciplining Murat as he reviews troop formations. Polito suggests a sea voyage would calm rough Murat effectively. Eugene spots an opportunity on the map involving Corsica and naval strategy. Eugene orders Captain Tournet to send Armand to Paris for urgent intel. Eugene explains the need to monitor Flanders' naval and military developments. Eugene eyes Corsica, a key maritime site that may soon be defenseless. Eugene plans to capture Corsica and control the western Mediterranean. Eugene hopes capturing Corsica will also help control unruly Murat. Eugene's strategy aims to deceive Austria and gain a decisive edge. Polo handles banking as uniform shipments prepare soldiers for the Italian expedition. Colo worries his bank's huge loan risks collapse if the expedition should fail. Bruis reassures Colo their patron rarely gambles and does not lose. Murat defies Eugene, complaining loudly in the camp before the Italian legion departure. Tournay's presence intimidates Murat, who reluctantly backs down from his threat. Returning soldier Chauvin reports that drill training is underway for all recruits. Bruis arrives with Robert Surcouf, introducing a young captain for the smuggling fleet. Napoleon arrives, appointing Bruis admiral and requesting a diversionary operation. Eugene shares urgent intelligence on British naval deployment in the Netherlands. Eugene orders Bruis to use all smuggling sailors, including Captain Surcouf, to seize Corsica. Bruis declares full support for Eugene's plans despite risking the smuggling business. Napoleon tasks Murat with boarding a ship for reconnaissance before the upcoming battle. Messina kicks Murat to break his defiance and prepare him for naval duty. Napoleon jokes about breaking Murat's wild spirit before their first battle. Eugene reveals the real plan, a deception targeting Genoa while striking Sardinia. Eugene explains that capturing Corsica is a valuable distraction for the true objective. Napoleon embraces the ruse, preparing his commanders for the deception's success. French fleet prepares cautiously for their winter mission in the Mediterranean. Bruis reminds all that survival is vital, despite their burning desire for revenge. Bruis inspires the fleet with the story of a brave cabin boy named Eugene. Murat suffers seasickness and complaints despite the fleet's hopeful spirit around him. French-Italian legion sets sail to take Corsica under French control once more. Governor Elliot and Captain Sidney discuss worrying news about the approaching French fleet. Paoli warns of Napoleon's rising threat, angering Governor Elliot and Admiral Nelson. Nelson, bored in Genoa, suddenly receives alarming news from his adjutant Hardy. Nelson and Sidney argue fiercely over the failure to burn French ships at Toulon. Nelson grimaces in pain as shrapnel grazes his right eye during the battle. Bandaged but defiant, Nelson commands a retreat to protect the governor and officials. Nelson vows grim revenge on the French fleet as they escape into Ajaccio port. The French fleet sails in harsh winter seas, setting the stage for a Mediterranean clash. Nelson and Sidney lament their fleet's weakness faced with the overwhelming French armada. Admiral Bruis holds firm, knowing their mission to reclaim the seas is vital. Surcouf steels himself to fight with the fleet, his hard past fueling his resolve. Nelson's hatred for Paoli runs deep, complicating British control of Corsica. The Italian legion moves through Sardinia, facing tough terrain and an uneasy enemy. Messina supports the motorized carts, mocking Augereau's strict old-school style. Eugene orders Messina to advance toward Ligurian coast, setting a cunning trap. Messina rushes ahead excitedly to secure the Ligurian coastline road to Genoa. Hippolyte questions the real plan behind the advance to Genoa and the decoy strategy. Lens and Bessieres lament the loss of horses, now relegated to supply cart duty. Lens insists cavalry is crucial for reconnaissance despite limited numbers and risks. Spying an Austrian garrison, Lens prepares for a report, not a reckless attack. Lens identifies the enemy unit's emblem, acknowledging their outdated loyalty. Tempted to ambush, Lens chooses caution and prioritizes greater victory. Napoleon studies the enemy advance, planning to flank with surgical precision. He rejects tradition, opting to destroy foes through flanking rather than frontal attack. Napoleon emphasizes speed, linking rapid movement with the use of horses and carts. Eugene declares the next battlefield at Montenot, as plans take shape swiftly. The army prepares for a forced march, speed paramount to crushing the enemy advance. Count Argenteau recalls his long history of battlefield victories and pride. He hears surprising news. The French army unexpectedly advances toward Montenot. Sebetendorf confirms the French carry the new tricolor flag and approach with strength. Argenteau resolves to hold Montenot despite being outnumbered 3-1. Sebetendorf warns about the French speed and army morale, unlike before. Argenteau orders infantry and artillery placements, confident in traditional tactics. Prepare a 3-row volley fire accompanied by a military band playing Mozart's march. Colonel Bukasovic leads Grenzer light infantry prepared for reconnaissance and grenadier assault. Bukasovic reports French advance will reach Montenot soon, battle imminent. Hoarse cries ring out heralding sudden enemy cavalry arrival. Chaos erupts. Sebetendorf orders diverse regiments to prepare for Hussar cavalry sortie. Argenteau mocks ragged French troops, underestimating their rapid advance. Junot, roaring like a lion, leads French cavalry, ready for battle. battle. Grenades explode among Austrian lines, breaking their formation and morale. Lukavina and Bukovic shout orders to reform lines amid ongoing grenade barrage. Argenteau orders immediate volley fire as grenades continue to disrupt his troops. Despite chaos, Junot laughs triumphantly, slingshot ready to launch more grenades. Battle of Montagnat erupts with grenade explosions, chaos engulfing both sides. Napoleon observes front lines surprised. Enemy remains still, confusing all. Eugene reports enemy's position. Napoleon doubts their allegiance or strategy. Napoleon's forces are not at full strength. Augereau expresses concern quietly. Messina demands to re-engage enemy, though supplies and manpower are limited. Berthier advises caution. Reckless attacks risk losing the advantage quickly. Napoleon boldly chooses annihilation over cautious battle. Eyes glint with resolve. Napoleon reveals secret weapon, horse artillery, swift and deadly on the battlefield. Napoleon asks Marmont if horse artillery can destroy enemy. Marmont grins confidence. Napoleon rallies his army, mocking the enemy's weakness to boost morale. Augereau expresses doubt while Messina mocks his past desertion attempts. Napoleon commands Eugene to buy time with special reserve unit using horse grenadiers. Lens offers to help command cavalry, proving his riding skill to Eugene. Junot boasts of his sling grenade skill after disrupting enemy lines spectacularly. Lens maneuvers Eugene's regiment smoothly, easing cavalry command challenges. Marmont's artillery begins bombarding enemy lines, exploiting the opening Eugene created. Eugene confidently assures Lens that enough time has been bought for decisive artillery strikes. Napoleon's horse grenadiers debut under Eugene and Junot, breaking enemy ranks. Marmont commands horse artillery to attack the enemy battery at Montagnat. Marmont orders rapid fire as Duroc adjusts cannons and Fornzy readies the crew. 30 shells hit Montagnat, annihilating the Argenteau Corps' artillery battery. Messina urges Sorbonne to deploy skirmishers and prepare infantry to charge. Sorbonne agrees cautiously to charge as Messina dismisses danger of counterattack. Verdier alerts Augereau of an enemy counterattack amidst the bombardment. Augereau commands Lanfin's regiment to charge despite risk and chaos. Sebetendorf rallies troops, but a shell fatally strikes him amid retreat. Confused, Argenteau agrees to retreat with Bukovic to mountain fortress Monterezino. Bukovic leads the Grentz regiment in a desperate charge, chanting honor. Bukovic is shot and falls. His regiment falters as blood soaks Montagnat soil. Ippolito spots Napoleon's blue coats who fire and reload in rapid succession. Eugene mounts his horse and decides to join the chase toward the retreating commander. Eugene urges Lannes to charge with the 13th Cavalry Regiment toward the retreating enemy. Lannes leads the full strength of the Pyrenees cavalry on a rapid and excited charge. Eugene joins Lannes' charge, raising the tricolor flag to rally soldiers forward. Count Argenteau looks back in horror as cavalry rapidly approach his retreat path. Eugene shoots Argenteau with a Mercury fulminate pistol, taking him down decisively. Ippolito raises the fallen tricolor flag, proclaiming the revolution's victory. Napoleon declares victory loudly, the sun rising on France's dominance in Montagnat. Napoleon praises General Serrier for his surprising conquest of Turin. Serrier credits commander's strategy and victory at Montagnat for success. Saliceti boasts about victory's effect, claiming the enemy fled without fight. Napoleon questions Saliceti about Paris defense and the presence of family. Saliceti brags about his role as Napoleon's representative at battlefront. Eugene offers to fund Lucien's political debut through Banque Marseille. Napoleon grabs Eugene's ear teasingly, praising his handling of affairs. Napoleon enters Turin's treasury vault. Generals marvel at the vast treasure. Turin soldiers celebrate victory with bonfire and festivity in the city square. Napoleon warns Eugene to behave properly after marriage, teasing him kindly. Napoleon questions the king's escape route. Eugene explains Beaulieu's strategy. Napoleon orders Eugene and Berthier to revise supply plans urgently. Serrier promises to protect looted gold wagons en route to the government. Serrier displays eagerness to return to battle. Eugene teases his eagerness. Eugene briefs key generals about the strategic target, enemy army defeat. Napoleon announces Milan as the next conquest, generals eager to advance. Napoleon rallies 47,000 soldiers to cross mountains and march on Milan. Soldiers roar their united battle cry to Milan, ready for the coming fight. Lombardy is the long, chaste land France's kings have never obtained. The infantry marches slowly while cavalry officers ride their horses forward. Ippolito questions supply wagons. Eugene explains horses concentrate in cavalry. Normal speed slows. Napoleon now plans to fight in frontal battles. Ippolito recognizes Messina's vanguard and Napoleon's main infantry force. Colonel Chasalup's engineering wagons carry tools, not guns or powder. Jean suggests building a modular pontoon bridge at the next garrison. Ippolito worries the march pace and lack of wagons may tire the brigade. Eugene expects Beaulieu to avoid direct defense and lure them elsewhere. Murat races on horseback toward Milan, determined to join the campaign. Murat meets Lieutenant Sukoski plundering village near the Per River. Eugene orders the cavalrymen to requisition, not plunder, protecting villagers. Napoleon welcomes Murat's return, expecting faster campaign progress. Berthier reports the Po River crossing, acknowledging Eugene's bridge plan. Enemy destroyed bridges and fled Milan, planning defense at Mantua. Napoleon insists Messina must keep chasing before enemy reaches Mantua. Eugene orders Junot to recruit local friends for messenger duty. Messina's moving speed may decide a surprise battlefield beyond Milan or Mantua. Minds fixed on Lodi, gateway to Mantua and fate of Lombardy. Field Marshal Wurmser grows anxious over Austrian setbacks in northern Italy. Austrian commanders fret as Sardinia falls quickly to Napoleon's forces. Ostanovich urges reinforcements to defend northern Italy and Vienna. Field Marshal Wurmser fears the French threat of direct attack on Vienna. Wurmser orders reinforcements and readies to defend Mantua fortress. Archduke Karl arrives, offering to succeed Wurmser against Napoleon. Discuss Mantua's strategic importance for halting French advance. At Tortona, Beaulieu mourns Italian setbacks amid his aristocratic comforts. Radetzky insists on open battle to protect Milan despite risks. Beaulieu debates the lack of fortresses in Lombardy to slow the French. Radetzky suggests Mantua fortress as key to stopping French southward advance. Beaulieu debates dangers of Mantua's isolation despite its natural defenses. Beaulieu plans to lure Napoleon into a trap by crossing the Per River. Beaulieu orders his troops to destroy bridges and position at Lodi. Austrian engineers chop away at the Lodi bridge to delay the French army. Beaulieu smiles, confident the bridge destruction will trap advancing French troops. Fused gunshots from the rear reveal French forces have crossed the Adda first. Radetzky shouts as French troops appear in their rear, surprising the Austrians. Messina, awake in palatial clothes, debates what to do after French capture Lodi. The Battle of Lodi begins with both commanders caught in absurd chaos. Messina rushes ahead, isolated across the turbulent winding Adda River. Messina questions why enemy forces remain on the Adda instead of Milan or Mantua. Messina orders La Harpe to break through enemy lines with urgency and courage. La Harpe rallies his brave subordinates, including young cavalry officer Lascelles. Messina entrusts La Harpe and his 30 hussars to break through the enemy. Beaulieu commands his Austrian troops to prepare for the attacking French vanguard. Radetzky notices strange movement ahead. Beaulieu is startled by French approach. Beaulieu reacts angrily to unexpected French infantry advancing and firing. La Harpe leads 30 riders, including Lascelles, breaking through the enemy lines. Beaulieu orders artillery to fire as his forces start to pursue fleeing cavalry. Napoleon vents anger over army's scattered force and Messina's rash move. Eugene calmly proposes a decoy strategy to encircle and defeat the enemy. Napoleon orders to save Messina, despite Augereau's concern for safety. Eugene requests Lascelles' light cavalry to join flanking attack with Murat. Junior officers express doubt about attacking from the river flank by crossing water. Eugene orders Colonel Chasalup to prepare a pontoon bridge for a flank attack. Eugene leads the Grenadier Brigade and Hussars on a risky flanking march at dawn. The mounted Grenadier Battalion races fast, leading the assault on the Adda Plains. Eugene discusses the urgent need to cross, skeptical of slower engineer wagons following. Murat and Lascelles joke as Eugene ponders Napoleon's gamble at Lodi Bridge crossing. Junot reveals absence of mobile pontoon bridge, halting Eugene's hopeful advance. Eugene inspects sluggish engineer wagons, realizing their limited capacity. Junot suggests searching upstream for a narrower spot with a possible intact bridge. At Cassano village, Eugene and officers face the swift river, unsure how to cross. Lascelles recalls a stone bridge here from old local lore about Duke Eugene's battle. Murat discovers the dilapidated Cassano stone bridge crossing the Adda River. Junot asks Chasalup if reinforcing the bridge with wood and barrels is possible soon. Junot organizes requisition. Murat rallies troopers to gather wine barrels for bridge work. Chasalup and engineers quickly strengthen the bridge with wood and barrels as Eugene watches. Eugene briefs officers on the decapitation maneuver, a flank attack to trap Beaulieu. Murat, Lascelles, and Junot eagerly gear up for the high-stakes pursuit of Beaulieu. The mounted grenadier brigade surges forward, crossing Adda River toward Lodi battle. Eugene eyes the Lodi battlefield ahead, ready to strike decisively and win. Charge begins. Eugene leads his reckless cavalry in a desperate high-speed attack. Eugene pushes forward with his cavalry, determined to capture Beaulieu and end the war. Napoleon orders a rapid infantry charge, running with fierce determination. Augereau and La Harpe discuss the absence of scouts as the army advances swiftly. La Harpe reveals Napoleon's true strength lies in surprise and loyal scouts. Augereau and La Harpe debate about Napoleon's secret guard and tactical use. Napoleon's special guard in black uniforms quietly marches alongside the main force. Hans reports enemy presence and the precarious situation near the Adda River. Napoleon orders the bombardment of Lodi to unsettle the enemy before advancing. Augereau and Serrier enter the chaotic town while La Harpe guards the rear. Augereau orders stopping formation and firing despite the difficulty under pressure. Major General Provera calls cavalry as Lodi troops falter under pressure. Lannes leads cavalry galloping toward the Lodi bridge amidst chaos and confusion. Thiers warns Lannes of Beaulieu's main army retreating with great force. Napoleon scolds hesitant Lannes to charge, rallying troops to cross the bridge. Napoleon commands Duroc and elite troops to fire while advancing in a single line. Napoleon shouts to soldiers, challenging their courage as gunfire fills the air. Troops rally behind the short but fierce Napoleon charging over the Lodi bridge. The legend of the Lodi bridge is born as the French press forward with fierce resolve. Despite victory at the bridge, Napoleon knows the battle's fierce struggle continues. A division holds out against overwhelming enemy forces on foreign soil. Suddenly, rapid, fire cannon explosions echo like salvation across the battlefield. Messina encourages his exhausted troops to hold until reinforcements arrive. Messina orders his troops to regroup in battalions despite ongoing enemy fire. Rapid musket volley from distant line hints at a strange new enemy tactic. Messina realizes the lead commander is Napoleon advancing with a fierce line. Messina mounts his horse, ready to lead his division in a desperate bayonet charge. Beaulieu commands his troops to hold the line despite facing rapid musket fire. Beaulieu reacts to sudden reports of enemies charging from behind his troops. Dust rises swiftly as Eugene's cavalry brigade charges fiercely from the north. Eugene orders his men to switch from pistols to swords in the rapid charge. Murat cuts down an enemy cavalryman with a saber, laughing heartily mid-charge. Eugene watches Murat's charge like a medieval knight in vibrant battlefield motion. Eugene receives a notification showing the enemy commander is ahead on the field. Junot arrives bloodied, urging Eugene to follow the fleeing enemy commander immediately. Eugene and Junot charge together as the enemy's defense rapidly collapses. Eugene fires one precise pistol shot, capturing Beaulieu with deadly accuracy. Napoleon arrives swiftly, praising Eugene's feat amid the victorious charge. Napoleon declares victory as Eugene's capture turns the tide of battle decisively. The enemy's camp breaks and flees, pursued fiercely by Lannes's cavalry charge. Napoleon proudly proclaims control of Lombardy as the battle ends triumphantly. The battlefield screams of wounded soldiers echo as medics rush to treat. Medic Larry swiftly amputates wounds, saving lives amid battlefield chaos. Larry urges quick bandaging, emphasizing speed saves lives on the field. Larry inspects the wounded soldiers, noting fewer amputations this battle. Urgent call, Napoleon injured. Larry rushes to his aid without hesitation. Napoleon lies injured. Larry examines him, confirming wounds are superficial. Napoleon jokes about past wounds. Eugene and Ippolito share quiet concern. Ippolito whispers to Eugene about Napoleon's strange references to a son. Eugene stops Ippolito from reading a letter, hints at private matters. Officers discuss Napoleon's letters and speculate on secret intrigues. Eugene ponders Napoleon's prolific love letters and missing messages. Napoleon confirms he was only grazed by a bullet and is ready to march. Eugene suggests a rest day, but Napoleon urges an immediate advance. Wounded Messina bursts in, urging quick march to Milan before chance fades. Napoleon rallies troops with laughter and commands preparation to advance. Eugene instructs Ippolito to send orders, placing La Harpe's troops first. Eugene assures Milan is undefended, rich but without armed resistance. On May 15th, troops approach Milan, greeted by cheering citizens and flowers. Napoleon remarks on Milan's liberation, once unconquered even by Louis XIV. Unarmed envoys approach, but Milan's governor Ferdinand von Habsburg is missing. Eugene learns Milan's governor fled before the army's arrival. Napoleon debates strategy with Messina and Eugene at Milan. Napoleon Napoleon addresses Milan nobles to declare revolutionary ideals. Duke Cerboloni surrenders Milan accompanied by prominent civilians. Eugene recognizes Volta, impressed by his electrical research. Duroc reminds court that Eugene is a respected colonel. Napoleon promotes Eugene to brigadier general despite his youth. Napoleon orders Eugene to lead the vanguard into Milan's streets. Massena teases Ozuro about jealousy over Eugene's success. Napoleon watches fireworks lighting Milan's night sky after conquest. Eugene contemplates the thick smoke clouding the celebrations. Napoleon surprises Eugene with a rare personal moment of trust. Napoleon asks Eugene to call him father and arrange a fake collapse. Eugene struggles to write letters at Napoleon's urgent insistence. Napoleon boasts of the many letters he sends to Josephine. Napoleon winks, teasing Eugene about his growing popularity. Eugene accepts Napoleon as his father for the very first time. Night falls as Napoleon solidifies control over Milan's fate. Saliceti reports Paris grants full authority to Commander Bonaparte. Napoleon insists Eugene is now his son and calls him sharpshooter. Saliceti warns Napoleon about needing his mother's permission for marriage. Napoleon assures his mother likes Eugene despite Josephine's unpopularity. Saliceti jokes Eugene is capturing hearts. Eugene questions post-war processing. Saliceti reminds that Austria's Archduke Karl will replace Rhine commander. Eugene confirms the war concept is changing to annihilate main forces. Saliceti applauds Eugene's conviction and asks about Paris gifts. Napoleon explains gold gifts to send to Paris will be decided at meeting. Napoleon commands abolition of tariffs, guilds, and church property in Milan. Noble Duke Cerboloni worries about free Jewish residency. Napoleon insists. Saliceti demands 20 million silver francs donation from Milan's aristocrats. Eugene explains how Italian cities will send gold and art to Paris. Napoleon demands art treasures be taken to Paris within 3 months. Perini says timeline is tight. Napoleon warns enemy comes soon. Napoleon threatens to be angry if demands are unmet before Austrian arrival. General Massena receives voluntary silver donations from Milanese aristocrats. Eugene reminds Massena of commander's order prohibiting private property invasion. Berthier confirms Eugene already submitted a military supply bill to Corps. Eugene begins mining gold with military supply bills for the Italian expedition. Massena casual in pajamas, Eugene and staff discuss reinforcements and supply plan. Massena boasts of noble donations while Eugene critiques secure bank storage. Eugene reveals Banque de Marseille as the bank for Italian Legion funds. Hippolyte produces documents as Massena blushes, surprised by the supply meeting. Massena questions Eugene's bank expansion as Berthier declines donations. Berthier shows friendship gifts. Eugene sells Raphael paintings for francs. Eugene offers 10% interest via Banque de Marseille, surprising Massena deeply. Eugene reminds Massena military supplies produce profits for high-interest returns. Massena agrees to entrust all funds with freedom to withdraw anytime he wants. Eugene offers Volta a Paris position showing a blueprint of an electric battery. Volta doubts Eugene's blueprint but considers the chance to research electricity. Volta grudgingly accepts Eugene's offer, uncertain about leaving Pavia. Hippolyte questions Eugene about Volta's importance to the larger plan. Eugene explains Volta's role could trigger a revolution beyond steam technology. Kahlo installs Milan branch sign. Eugene plans to hire trained postmen. Eugene explains combined bank and post office plan focused on military funds. Kahlo realizes Eugene's plan includes intelligence, armed postmen, and crisis control. Eugene reveals cartel's goal to become France's largest merchant network. Kahlo mentions a mysterious visitor arranged through Barings Bank connections. Visitor named Rothschild approaches, signaling a powerful new alliance. Nathan rehearses to meet Eugene, mimicking a grand greeting to his reflection. Solomon mocks Nathan's theatrics, doubting the edict's true origins. Amschel supports relationship building despite doubts about Eugene's worth. The Rothschild brothers discuss the importance of Milan and French politics. Nathan reveals his London assignment, backed by Baring's support for expansion. Nathan nervously greets Eugene, mistaking his identity in excitement. Eugene confirms his general rank, impressing the Rothschild brothers deeply. Eugene examines a gifted watch and assures Baring's investment safety. Nathan nervously admits his worry over the London market venture to Eugene. Eugene proposes a dividend, paying deal with the Rothschilds despite war limits. Silver coins delivered impress. Nathan wonders aloud if commission is too high. Eugene offers a stake in London bank shares as an investment in return. Nathan demands precise numbers, showing his calculated business mindset sharply. Eugene laughs, trusting the brothers' distinct approaches despite their rivalry. Amschel offers partnership shares, restricted by family bank tradition and father's approval. Eugene proposes equal partnership, addressing Amschel with a formal German honorific. Amschel consents to 25% partnership, impressing Nathan in a historic handshake. Polito wonders why Eugene chose London for investment over Frankfurt or Vienna. Eugene explains England's economic dominance and its importance to Rothschild's success. Eugene remarks Nathan Rothschild's potential to become financial leader. Banker Pierre Collot urges Eugene to discuss the next day's new business venture. Eugene confirms the new business, launching the canned food trade in Milan. A 6-horse carriage races across Lombardy plains under guards' watchful eyes. French-Italian Army Corps cavalry halts the carriage, blocking their way firmly. Lieutenant Colonel Murat boasts as he inspects the women inside the carriage. Noble lady inside laughs, teasing Murat's blatant flirting from within. Murat excitedly proclaims himself Eugene's protector to the guards nearby. Napoleon watches an opera in Milan's La Scala, seated among elite spectators. Francesco Melzi, Daryl speaks passionately about uniting Italy through culture. Napoleon folds his lips, considering the real meaning behind Melzi's words. Giuseppina Grassini appears, smiling brightly and chatting with Napoleon. Napoleon jokes about the newspaper title naming him a friend of Milan. Colonel Junot bursts in, warning Napoleon urgently of a sudden arrival. Josephine arrives unexpectedly, smiling as she confronts Napoleon warmly. Napoleon rushes to Josephine, embracing her joyfully, illness forgotten. Eugene explains canning food to Saliceti, who doubts its long-term freshness. Eugene opens the prototype can, revealing preserved dried meat still edible. The groundbreaking canning invention promises to change war, travel, and survival. Eugene explains canning science to Saliceti, who doubts its process. Eugene demonstrates a can of preserved meat sealed for months to Saliceti. Rill arrives, and Eugene invites him for a discussion about the canned food. Eugene explains the preservation principle and its importance to Larill. Eugene points out microbes cause food spoilage and wounds to fester. Larill questions the theory Eugene shows can meat never spoiled. Larill accepts the idea and asks what role he must play in the plan. Eugene outlines creating a sanitation unit to fight infection in the army camps. Saliceti questions the rush. Larill insists urgent action is needed. Eugene requests prompt military approval and patent registration for canning. Saliceti agrees to fund and expedite canned food factory setup in Milan. Eugene gifts Saliceti silver coins to aid political efforts for the project. Eugene warns Saliceti to avoid church looting to guard political stability. Saliceti smiles slyly, agreeing to Eugene's conditions and financial aid. Eugene requests Saliceti's help to expand production to uniforms, weapons, and more. Saliceti is impressed by Eugene's strategic vision for Milan as supply hub. Hortense unexpectedly appears, greeting Eugene playfully in the office. Marie-Therese arrives silently, glaring at Eugene with a sulky look. Marie insists on being called Mademoiselle Marie while confronting Eugene. Eugene inspects weapon prototypes and business reports brought by Marie and Demas. Armand explains the breech loading rifle's features and the unstable Marceau cap. Eugene explores the Pennsylvania long rifle and rifled barrel's accuracy benefits. Eugene orders 10,000 rifles and Marceau caps for the Italian expedition from Demas. Marie presents a shining pistol using the Marceau cap and 100 rounds of bullets. Eugene warns about careful transport. Everyone debates the risk of fulminate of mercury. Marie jokes about Eugene's worries. He considers developing smokeless gunpowder. Marie leans in to Eugene to praise her efforts, shining with pride and charm. Eugene leads party to newly finished canned food factory at Milan's outskirts. Marie questions Eugene about the canned food. Demas and Collot discuss business. Collot recognizes Marie as princess and jokes about her honorary title. Eugene announces the canned food factory ownership will be under Marie's name. Marie struggles with the gift, quietly saddened though understanding Eugene's intent. Pauline rushes and hugs Eugene passionately, breaking through his guards. Polito reprimands the guard as Pauline clings closely to Eugene in their presence. Marie demands to know who Pauline is, eyeing Eugene with suspicion. Pauline introduces herself brightly as Napoleon's younger sister to Marie and Eugene. Marie and Pauline meet for the first time in Milan with Eugene caught in between. Louis nervously arrives at Milan with his determined mother Letizia and Albert Perman. Letizia boldly scolds Louis for his fear, insisting victors put family first. Albert explains the family's close close ties and absence of Albert's sister Laure, who vanished. Letizia demands Albert find Laure and Pauline immediately despite his hesitation. Letizia prepares to go to Napoleon's headquarters, instructing Louis to lead the way. Letizia reveals Napoleon's controversy marrying Josephine. Eliza cynically questions her. Pauline sips coffee with playful grin while Marie and young Laure exchange anxious glances. Pauline teases Marie about Eugene, making the princess blush as Laure laughs hard. Eugene frowns, disturbed by Hippolyte's teasing about his love troubles with Pauline. Junot bursts in on horseback, startling Eugene, who barely processes his frantic news. Eugene orders everyone to hurry back to Serbelloni Palace as Pauline and Marie lead the way. Hortense excitedly greets Eugene at Serbelloni Palace amidst a crowd of nobles and soldiers. Josephine joyfully greets Eugene, but he returns an uneasy greeting reflecting tension. Letizia greets Josephine coldly, inspecting Eugene and Hortense with guarded eyes. Napoleon arrives and surprises the crowd by declaring Eugene as his son openly. Napoleon boldly raises Josephine's hand, announcing their upcoming marriage openly. Napoleon formalizes his union with Josephine, solidifying Eugene's place as family. Pauline shares a mischievous laugh with Marie and Laure, plotting to unsettle Eugene. Eugene sighs, caught between family tensions and complicated relationships in Milan. Wurmser joins the War Council to discuss the crisis in Lombardy in August 1795. They debate Napoleon's success and Wurmser's plan to reclaim Lombardy with concentrated forces. Wurmser reveals Napoleon's tactics prevent easy concentration of forces, forcing new strategies. Karl expresses doubt about strategy as Wurmser claims he can bait Napoleon to fight on their terms. Wurmser proudly states that his role is to act as bait while main forces under Alvinczi advance. Karl arrives at Wurmser's quarters to demand the true plan and confirm strategy details. Wurmser explains the brutality of the new warfare and survivors' remarkable resilience. Wurmser reveals Napoleon's uncanny timing, fighting where and when he wants with great skill. Wurmser warns that Napoleon will not defend conventionally, foiling their strategy. Karl questions if Wurmser's plan can work without Napoleon defending heavily. Wurmser reveals he will lure Napoleon by acting as bait on the battlefield. Wurmser stresses the need to send Marshal Alvinczi with 80,000 troops as soon as possible. Karl vows to send the Empire's finest sword, Alvinczi, timely to secure victory. Napoleon curiously examines a pile of expensive tin cans introduced by Marie and Eugene. Napoleon questions whether canned food truly preserves it well, intrigued by the innovation. Marie and Eugene beam proudly, excited about the revolutionary potential of preserved food. Napoleon inspects canned food prototypes with Eugene and Marie nearby. Marie proudly explains the canned food's preservation over 3 months. Hippolyte reluctantly opens a can for Napoleon to witness the preserved food. Marie tastes the preserved meat and confirms it is fresh after 3 months. Napoleon approves canned food officially. Eugene predicts faster troop movement. Napoleon checks on armaments. Berthier reports army readiness details. Eugene and Marmont discuss new percussion cap guns. Berthier listens. Junot launches a winged grenade demonstrating impact detonation range. Napoleon orders distribution of new Ferguson rifles to key cavalry units. Berthier calmly offers to report either on army or family matters first. Berthier updates on army's reinforcements and readiness from the Alps. Eugene reports cavalry strength and ongoing horse training. Napoleon questions about new artillery and percussion cap gun availability. Eugene admits mass production issues of percussion cap guns after 3 months' effort. Napoleon expresses cautious satisfaction with new weaponry but notes limitations. Napoleon commands Augereau about pacification and arms distribution. Augereau reports Brescia fortress lost. Imperial army captures Venetian city. Napoleon reacts fiercely to news of enemy presence on Lombardy border. Napoleon orders immediate readiness as Austrian forces arrive from Tyrol. Marie struggles to sleep, restless in the divided palace halls. Laure reveals Louise is out on a date, surprising Marie quietly. Marie worries for Eugene's safety despite his proven battlefield skill. Laure teases Marie about Eugene, prompting embarrassed denial. Marie insists on seeing Eugene before departure, surprised it's early. Josephine joins Marie to see Eugene off, united by maternal bond. Letizia vents about Napoleon's marriage. Louis comforts her quietly. Pauline, Eliza, and Caroline discuss Eugene amid family tensions. Laure warns Pauline of Eugene's imminent departure, sparking urgency. Napoleon commands veteran Serrier to defend Milan with 10,000 men. Josephine arrives at camp, surprising surprising Napoleon and Eugene before departure. Napoleon kisses Josephine, but she suddenly runs off, shocking Eugene. Marie fears Eugene's safety. He kisses her hand before leaving. Pauline confronts Eugene playfully, claiming familial ties as she teases. Pauline suddenly kisses Eugene deeply before sending a playful hand kiss. Eugene urgent to depart, Napoleon leads the charge with fierce resolve. Napoleon shouts for victory as Eugene and troops march out to battle. Napoleon inspects the march as Eugene reports on enemy moves from Brescia. Augureau questions Eugene about the effectiveness of reduced supplies and canned food. Eugene explains the absence of foot artillery and the presence of horse artillery only. Eugene highlights speed as a crucial advantage over the slower imperial army. Napoleon patting Sukovsky's shoulder, inspiring hope for Poland's future. Napoleon focuses on the strategic importance of Lake Garda and Verona. Lens and LaSalle report enemy strength at Brescia and incoming reinforcements. Augureau suggests stopping enemy before Brescia, but Napoleon rebuffs and plans a ruse. Napoleon orders leakage of false info to force enemy out unprepared at Brescia. Eugene patrols with junior officers, pushing them to think beyond common tactics. Eugene quizzes Marat on distances, highlighting the enemy's ignorance of French speed. Eugene explains surprise attack hinges on speed beyond enemy's common-sense expectations. Napoleon rides at the camp's edge, observing soldiers resting under the moonlight. Messina leads frontline troops confidently as the march presses forward with mixed formation. Napoleon and Eugene discuss betraying info to lure enemy out. Augureau looks doubtful. Eugene encourages Junot to think tactically while Marat admits his poor map skills. Marat recalls distance facts, surprised by Eugene's point on enemy ignorance of French speed. Eugene reveals the success of their surprise will rely on surpassing standard infantry speed. Quastanovich commands the Austrian vanguard, wary of French inactivity at Brescia. Clenot delivers Wurmser's order to advance to Mantua, sparking military discussion. They analyze French troop dispersal and plan to meet the enemy at Mantua. Marquis Lusignan and officers endorse Quastanovich's bold plan to strike first. Oksky reports language barrier among troops. Quastanovich responds with order. Quastanovich orders the military band to play, boosting soldiers' morale on the march. Unexpected dust on horizon alarms Quastanovich's vanguard advancing near Lake Garda. Officers debate the sudden enemy approach. Radetzky doubts but accepts reality. Quastanovich expresses disbelief at Napoleon's sudden presence on the battlefield. Eugene commands his Grenadier Cavalry brigade to prepare winged grenades for attack. Grenadier Cavalry throw advanced winged grenades, surprising the Austrian vanguard. The Marquis Lusignan witnesses the grenade attack, shocked by its suddenness. Grenades explode among Austrian ranks, causing confusion and breaking formation instantly. Eugene, Marat, and Junot lead a full cavalry charge to break through the panicked enemy. Eugene orders Hippolyte to inform Brigadier General Lon of their breakthrough attempt. Quastanovich's corps braces as Eugene's brigade strikes the Austrian front with force. Eugene and Marat spearhead the assault, aiming to shatter the enemy's resolve quickly. Battle of Lonato begins as Eugene's grenades declare the French assault. Scouts capture enemy soldiers, revealing an unguarded Austrian position. Napoleon orders extracting intelligence from the prisoner by threat of brutal interrogation. Napoleon explains the strategic goal is to encircle and crush the enemy, not destroy outright. Napoleon tasks a bold rear breakthrough maneuver to shatter enemy lines and communication. Lens volunteers to lead, but Napoleon insists on focused destructive power over courage. Napoleon orders grenadiers to spearhead the attack with magic bullets to disrupt the enemy. Explosions erupt as Eugene's grenadiers throw grenades, breaking enemy formation. Marat urges sabers drawn, but Junot orders retreat to avoid unnecessary fighting. Marat relents to orders to advance with grenades while LaSalle and officers cheer the charge. The Grenadier Brigade breaks through the panicked Austrian front quickly and decisively. Austrian generals regain composure and order infantry squares to repel cavalry charge. Commander Quastanovich orders preparation of artillery as enemy advances dangerously close. Roselmani and Radetzky are shocked as French mounted artillery advances rapidly. Napoleon watches as his strategy unfolds. The battle will decide the campaign. French cavalry charge renews with vigor as grenades sow havoc and panic spreads. Junot relays orders despite danger to keep coordination as French success intensifies. Napoleon knows the risky strategy could fail, but trusts his troops to prevail. Marat's cavalry pushes relentlessly forward, spreading fear in enemy lines. Quastanovich watches his lines break under relentless French bombardment and charge. The concentrated bombardment and cavalry charge pierce Lenato's defenses decisively. Armont orders cannons to fire first as artillery units prepare for battle. The artillery prepares to fire on enemy center amid tense battlefield tension. 60 cannons fire explosive shells into Austrian lines, disrupting their formation. Quastanovich struggles to maintain control as explosions tear through his troops. Spork orders the regimental charge, preparing to break through the enemy lines. Spork watches as his artillery stops firing, signaling a risky enemy move. Lusignan insists his troops fire first despite cavalry horses approaching swiftly. Lons uses his Ferguson rifle to kill Lusignan as cavalry fires on the enemy. Sina leads line infantry while Augereau's troops march in column formation. Augereau commands infantry to form 3 ranks and prepare to fire their rifles. Messina, Brune, and Lamphun prepare to lead a decisive bayonet charge. Quastanovich grimaces as Eugene's marksman readies pistol behind Murat's saber blow. Murat leads the cavalry saber charge, with Eugene's horse grenadiers roaring behind. The strategic breakthrough unfolds as Eugene's cavalry cuts deep into enemy ranks. Explosive shells wreak havoc, causing panic and disorder among Austrian forces. Disordered Austrian troops scramble to regroup while under continuous French pressure. French combined arms tactics demonstrate overwhelming battlefield dominance and innovation. Eugene leads the decisive charge with his 1,000 strong horse grenadier brigade roaring. Wurmser arrives in Brescia after a rapid march but finds devastation awaiting him. Wurmser questions Kleinau about the annihilation of Quastanovich's vanguard. Kleinau reveals the entire vanguard is dead or captured, except the fleeing Hussar cavalry. Wurmser angrily demands the return of his artillery and infantry after the defeat. Major General Ballix von Behazer urges Wurmser to plan their next strategic step carefully. Major Radetzky reports the enemy's strange canned food and scarce supply wagons. Wurmser deduces the enemy is fast but lacks supplies and plans to hold Brescia. Wurmser orders reinforcement rerouting to approach Mantua from the east of Lake Garda. Wurmser strongly believes that greater numbers will secure victory over Bonaparte. Napoleon's army celebrates their swift victory but knows their main goal is just the beginning. Napoleon insists fortress warfare isn't part of his strategy and fears a stalemate. Napoleon asks how they can lure the cunning Wurmser out of Brescia. Eugene proposes 3 options, including drawing the enemy out with strategic maneuvers. Napoleon rejects a retreat to Mantua or giving up Milan despite the risks involved. Eugene suggests using Napoleon himself as bait to lure Wurmser into the open. Napoleon embraces Eugene's risky plan, laughing off warnings of personal danger. The plan is set. Eugene, Messina, and Lons lead the rapid advance toward Verona. Lons questions the need for his attachment. Eugene explains their crucial mission. Eugene declares the goal to occupy Verona and deceive Wurmser to strike. Messina calls the Mincio their Rubicon, a river of destiny and fate. Eugene grimaces, haunted by his past battle on the Mincio River. Lons assures Eugene he won't fight alone as Messina eagerly prepares. Eugene asks Hippolyte for bridge locations along the Mincio River. Hippolyte names 4 bridges: Peschiera, Borghetto, Goito, and Rivalta. Messina and Lons marvel at Hippolyte's detailed knowledge of the terrain. Eugene reveals Naples' army is moving to support Venice against France. Junot expresses surprise Naples has joined the anti-French alliance. Eugene explains Naples sends money, but Austria moves their troops here. Eugene holds up intel on Lipthay moving north to aid Venice's defense. Lipthay leads Naples' troops, hoping to gain honor and return home. Ricovina warns Lipthay against Mantua, fearing Bonaparte's power. Ricovina spots approaching French cavalry and sounds the alarm. Eugene orders horse grenadiers to throw grenades, launching the attack. Lipthay's troops panic and fail to form ranks as grenades explode. The horse grenadiers fire rapidly on Lipthay's unprepared forces. Eugene orders cavalry to keep pursuing while infantry rests after victory. Eugene explains they will advance alone to lure enemy toward Verona. Lons warns Eugene of risk facing enemy infantry without support. Sina agrees to follow after Eugene if Verona is occupied first. Eugene and comrades ready horses, eager but tense, for swift attack. Eugene and Lons charge ahead as their new goal, Verona, awaits. Governor Foscari worries as the French troops approach Verona's walls. Militia commander Battaglia prepares defenses despite the city's thin walls. Ottolini meets Battaglia to discuss Venice's weak defenses around Verona. Battaglia expresses frustration over Austrian occupation of Brescia. Ottolini worries that France or Austria might take Brescia next. Battaglia Verona reluctantly listens as Ottolini proposes cooperation with France. Ottolini reveals a secret letter promising no occupation if passage is granted. Battaglia questions Ottolini's loyalty, warning of betrayal to Venice. Ottolini insists surrender is avoided and French will not occupy Verona now. They agree to let France lure Austria into mutual destruction instead. Governor Foscari watches from the residence with a conflicted expression. Saliceti praises Ottolini's caution while confirming French plans to Verona. Saliceti boasts of French victories, claiming Napoleon's dominance in Italy. Eugene watches careful political moves through his loyal bodyguard nearby. Junot warns Eugene about the uncertain loyalty of Italian allies. Eugene confirms they wait for Wurmser's moves before advancing further. Eugene patiently waits for reports signaling Wurmser's next tactical steps. Fates of Verona and surrounding cities hinge on this precarious standoff. Ottolini and Saliceti discuss the precarious alliance and their risky plan. Healy struggles to predict Wurmser's move despite extensive intelligence reports. Healy explains the feigned military map is used to deceive the enemy effectively. Healy worries as Saliceti's risky mission could trigger an immediate recall from Paris. Suddenly, Armand bursts in to urgently report Wurmser's large army has started marching. Healy orders Armand to quickly deliver the news to Verona with postal soldiers attached. Armand sets off on a long, perilous journey across enemy-controlled lands to Verona. Armand explains the dangerous route around Lake Garda to avoid Austrian control. Austrian soldiers intercept Armand's group, blocking their passage on patrol route. Armand lies, claiming to be a postman delivering urgent letters to bypass soldiers. Suddenly, gunfire erupts as Armand's group opens fire using pre-loaded pistols. Armand orders a desperate dash after depleting their pistols, evading enemy fire. A stray musket shot wounds Armand's horse, but he presses on toward Verona steadfastly. Armand bursts into Verona's City Hall Square, exhausted but delivering crucial news. Lon spots Armand's postman uniform and alerts Eugene of urgent news arrival. Eugene asks Armand with urgency if Wurmser has finally taken action. Eugene praises Armand's courage and orders the army to prepare for immediate departure. Eugene instructs Lons to leave 1,000 cavalry behind for garrison duty. Eugene rushes out, shouting to command the army to quickly return to Bonaparte's side. August 27, 1795, Wurmser finally takes the bait as Eugene's forces prepare to pursue him. La Harpe commands his exhausted troops to march faster toward Lonato urgently. La Harpe recalls his revolutionary past and bitter regret fighting for Bern's uprising long ago. La Harpe rallies Dommartin and Rusca, demanding courage despite their history of missed glory. Wurmser surveys the battlefield through a telescope while Clenau reports enemy forces. Wurmser orders artillery fire to greet the approaching French army on the plains. Wurmser watches cautiously as light infantry advance, unsure if cavalry or line infantry respond. Wurmser is confused by the rapid firing and strange formations from the French Marseille regiment. Radetzky spots La Harpe's troops arriving and alerts Wurmser to the unexpected flank. La Harpe and Rusca arrive at the front, realizing their division is engaged sooner than expected. La Harpe explains the enemy's strong artillery positions, cautioning against a reckless advance. La Harpe orders a desperate grenadier and bayonet charge to break through the artillery lines. Dommartin asserts his grenadier past, while Rusca suggests a bold cavalry charge with cunning. Rusca leads the light cavalry in a reckless charge, surprising the Austrians with speed. Austrian artillery and Grent's infantry prepare rapid fire, struggling to target the cavalry charge. Grent's infantry and air rifle units hastily prepare to fire on the charging French cavalry. Dommartin leads grenadiers forward, throwing grenades to disorient the Austrian vanguard. The full division of La Harpe's infantry charges with bayonets, shaking the Austrian lines. Wurmser shouts in frustration, trying to stop the chaotic French bayonet charge breaking lines. The sudden and fierce bayonet clash begins, signaling a pivotal moment at Castiglione. Napoleon watches Wurmser's calm stance despite the unexpected attack ahead. Napoleon orders Marmont to prepare artillery fire despite his infantry being engaged. Marmont hesitates but obeys Napoleon's risky order to target the enemy artillery flank. Marmont and Duroc quickly lead horse artillery forward to bomb the enemy's right flank. Napoleon queries Berthier about the positions of the retreating divisions. Berthier reports all divisions are retreating from multiple directions back to Castiglione. Napoleon warns about potential enemy reinforcements aiming to trap the French army. Wurmser notices French artillery bombardment shaking his troops on the right flank. Wurmser orders his officers to hold position, expecting reinforcements from Alvingsy. Mitrowski directs the artillery to block the French advance despite heavy bombardment. Davidovich is shocked by the French artillery's rapid firing and precision. Wurmser commands a defensive stance, preparing for reinforcements to arrive soon. Rosselmini's regiment is set as bait while Schwert's cavalry prepares to counterattack. Schwertz leads 1,000 Hussar cavalry in a fearsome saber charge against the French. Wurmser eyes the battlefield with intense focus, tracking Napoleon's every move. Adjutants report French bombardment has stopped. Wurmser orders focus shifted. Wurmser orders Rosselmini's regiment and Radetzky to prepare a countercharge swiftly. Wurmser furrows his brow watching stalled hussars, concerned about artillery loss. Radetzky alerts Wurmser of Augereau's main force appearing from the northwest. Wurmser reacts grimly to Augereau's arrival, knowing the danger to his army. Wurmser orders a strategic retreat using Rosselmini as bait to save most troops. The horse artillery's rapid bombardment becomes a legendary factor in saving 30,000 men. Before the revolution, Austria led in artillery technology with powerful cannons. Kleno reports to Deputy Commander Davidovich on Rosselmini's brave fight holding the line. Rosselmini, with 2,000 men, fights without retreat to stall La Harpe's larger force. Wurmser orders Radetzky to ride as a messenger and bring reinforcements fast. Radetzky mounts his horse and rushes out with 50 messengers carrying urgent orders. Wurmser commands Bahazer's Grenzer infantry to block the enemy and hold the line. Napoleon and his staff analyze the artillery challenge from the Austrian highlands. Napoleon commands Dalmain to urge Augereau's division to engage immediately. Napoleon trusts his plan as Berthier's comm signals reinforcements are near. Napoleon confidently names Messina, Laon, and Eugene as key to the coming victory. Wurmser hears artillery sounds approaching from behind, alerting his commanders. Wurmser calls urgently for his hussars as enemy cavalry approaches rapidly. Hazer leads his Grenzer infantry in aggressive skirmishes toward the French forces. Napoleon explains that he alone can maneuver reinforcements to strike at the right moment. Wurmser readies infantry squares and orders the bulk of his forces to prepare for attack. Eugene launches grenades silently over the front of Wurmser's troops, causing chaos. Wurmser smiles at the sounds of firing, confident in his artillery's power. Napoleon reveals his new magic maneuver, gathering forces perfectly aligned. Berthier calmly explains how Napoleon's strategy isolates and fixes the enemy in place. Napoleon scolds Berthier sharply, frustrated at the loss of trusted adjutants. Berthier remains composed, questioning Napoleon's metaphor with impassive curiosity. Napoleon angrily dismisses Berthier, demanding he stay close until the war ends. Messina orders bold maneuvers as Eugene's horse grenadiers prepare hit and run tactics. Eugene reacts to heavy cannon fire while Messina smiles, confident in artillery's role. Messina orders infantry advance while Laon scoffs at the idea of formal tactics. Serboni confirms Laons will charge alone. Messina prepares infantry to follow. Brune orders infantry into line formation and attack, raising battle cries of revolution. Mesina's column shifts to line and fires Ferguson rifles, disrupting Austrian formations. Serboni notes enemy formation wavering while Laons prepares cavalry for decisive strike. Laons commands Gascony cavalry charge, roaring with fury at the enemy's flank. LaSalle urges swift breakthrough, pressing cavalry to penetrate enemy flank hard. Eugene fires his last bullets, killing Wurmser. Others seize credit loudly. Eugene orders no survivors, sparking Murat's protest about prisoner rules. Eugene reports to Napoleon, who plans to prepare Venice for the next fight. Napoleon smiles faintly, confident he will defeat Alvingsy and conquer northern Italy. Alvingsy arrives days after battle, finding only ashes and silence left. Alvingsy consults his officers, condemning lost supply lines and old failures. Alvingsy reprimands Radetzky, emphasizing the vital need for supply lines. Alvingsy orders patience, plans to secure Verona and send a messenger to Mantua. Alvingsy stresses supply over emotion, valuing logistics above all else. Alvingsy discusses alliances, doubting Italian allies' resolve and movements. Alvingsy confirms the enemy is human, noting captured Moreau officer de Saix. Radetzky recalls enemy's unique rear-loading rifles, a strange military innovation. Alvingsy plans first to secure supply lines before engaging the enemy decisively. Radetzky vows to capture the enemy leader, bolstered by Alvinksy's orders. Alvinksy begins meticulous preparations, leading with precision and cold logic. French cavalry retreats from Verona. Alarmed commissioner urged to flee quickly. Bessieres confirms enemy's main force advances beyond Verona to Caldiero. Alvinksy enters Verona after swift surrender, encountering militia commander. Taglia reveals French looting. Alvinksy condemns their barbaric tactics. Alvinksy orders no movement until Mantua's commander acts, focusing on supply lines. Battaglia accepts role as messenger to Venetian government despite his pride. September 1795, Alvinksy begins the last decisive Austrian campaign in Italy. Napoleon orders the army to march east with Salicetti joining the command. Salicetti questions the severed supply line while Napoleon reassures about food supplies. Napoleon claims the army has enough food, showing cans filled on every wagon. Napoleon dismisses concern and reveals their advance target Padua, the core of Venice. Salicetti warns about the dangers and Austrian control east of Venice. Napoleon reveals the plan is to lure the enemy out by advancing into Padua. Napoleon receives news from the Rhine front about the defeated Moreau and captured generals. Napoleon prioritizes annihilating Alvinksy's army over threats to Vienna or Venice. The governor of Padua, Contarini, reads a revolutionary pamphlet with concern. Battaglia warns Padua is defenseless as Vicenza surrendered and students are revolting. Contarini admits surrender is necessary despite the noble pride of Venice. Napoleon declares the Padua Republic's establishment after seizing the government office. Napoleon explains Padua's independence and respect for citizens' freedoms to Contarini. Eugene and Salicetti discuss how independence slogans will worsen Lombardy unrest. Eugene predicts Alvinksy will be forced out due to rising regional revolts. Napoleon orders Messina, Augereau, and La Harpe to fully subdue Venetian mainland. Messina asks for the deadline. Napoleon answers after Alvinksy leaves Verona. Augereau commands a division far from the main force near Bassano. Augereau explains the distant Bassano position is safe from major enemy attack. Augereau comforts his soldiers by allowing rest and small freedoms there. Augereau debates ideological concerns over Eugene's royal connections. Concern rises over Eugene's future influence and loyalty to the revolution. Augereau vows to stop treason, affirming his loyalty to the Republic. A cannonball strikes the front line. Augereau orders immediate roll call. Austrian General Alvinksy discovers surprise. French troops without artillery. Alvinksy orders artillery to bombard French lines near Bassano. Under heavy shelling, Augereau's division conducts an orderly retreat. General Xavier executes crossfire tactics to pressure the retreating French. Alvinksy halts cavalry advance to keep formation during pursuit. Eugene's horse grenadiers arrive, forcing the Austrians to halt. The French retreat quickly, abandoning supplies but saving men and arms. Austrian staff celebrate a victory, but Alvinksy doubts the success. Augereau apologizes to Napoleon, who rebukes him sharply but encouragingly. Napoleon reminds Augereau of past victories and the realities of war. Eugene confirms he responded quickly to Augereau's call without orders. Napoleon listens, intrigued by Eugene's mention of the Mantua garrison's movement. Napoleon announces an operation to crush Austrian forces before they unite. Napoleon declares the campaign hunting the double-headed eagle, symbolizing empire's fall. Napoleon meets with his commanders to finalize the plan before departure. Napoleon decides to target Mantua garrison first, avoiding the risk of a pincer. Berthier reveals a critical shortage of gunpowder for the upcoming battle. Napoleon laments the lack of gunpowder, stressing its impact on starting the attack. Eugene proposes to seize enemy gunpowder by targeting a supply depot. Messina accepts Eugene's plan, noting the strategic logic of supply lines in Villanova. Laon insists Villanova is the enemy's key supply point between Verona and Bassano. Napoleon approves the supply raid, assigning cavalry to Eugene and Laon. Murat boasts about his pillaging skill. Junot disapproves while Eugene watches. Eugene warns Murat to follow orders while recognizing his spirit to succeed. Laon questions Eugene about the real reason for calling him, suspecting gunpowder. Laon reveals he noticed Armand's nerves passing through Villanova, confirming a supply depot. Eugene admits they may face combat near Villanova, trusting Land's skills then. Laon orders the Pyrenees cavalry to march faster as Eugene's lawyer speaks in riddles. Columns of wagons, cavalry, and grenadiers advance to capture Austrian supplies. Field Marshal Kanto orders his troops to discard excess supplies and march fast. Radetzky insists on moving fast, even forging orders to push Kanto forward. Kanto leads 10,000 troops with fortress cannons north, unaware of enemy cavalry. Eugene faces erratic weather as rain threatens their gunpowder supplies. Sierres reports delays in reconnaissance. Lons leads patrol himself. Eugene summons LaSalle to locate Lons near Arcole village swiftly. LaSalle dashes off to find Lons, knowing the terrain near Arcole well. Lons flees with cavalry behind, chased by enemy hussars in heavy rain. Joubert defends Lons. Swords clash amid pounding rain and enemy pursuit. Enemy cavalry doubles. Crisis deepens as flanking riders close and fast. LaSalle's reinforcements arrive. Gunfire scatters enemy in pouring rain. Lons narrowly escapes. Rain-soaked troops regroup with Eugene's main force. Eugene scolds Lons for reckless action but understands the danger at hand. Lons admits necessity of forward action. Concern grows about enemy strength. Eugene shifts plan. Siege needed due to rain, soaked gunpowder and enemy armor. Assaloup confirms artillery can be seized despite rain, bringing new hope. Eugene calls on Murat. Cavalry prepares to seize enemy artillery at Arcole. Murat rallies troops boldly. The Horse Grenadier Brigade readies for assault. General Kanto angrily questions cavalry reports amid confusion and rain. Radetzky doubts enemy presence. Kanto considers unusual enemy cavalry advance. Cannons fire unexpectedly from behind, startling Austrian commanders in rain. Austrian troops panic as their own cannons are seized by enemy forces. Lons leads charge across Arcole Bridge, opening the Battle of Arcole. The Horse Grenadier Brigade crosses the shaky Arcole Bridge amid rain. Eugene urges the brigade to hold grenades tightly while crossing under fire. Shelling falls dangerously close to the cavalry riding across the bridge. Hit by a glancing shell, Eugene orders Hippolyte to stop enemy artillery fire. Eugene commands Hippolyte to warn artillery to stop firing and join cavalry. Lons breaks through enemy lines with cavalry, scattering the Mantua Legion. Juno amazes at enemy routing. Eugene explains their morale was fragile. Eugene orders a retreat. Lons prepares to herd retreating enemy troops. Lons rallies cavalry leaders to drive enemy toward the Tyrol route. Murat obediently takes charge as Eugene's escort, abandoning Glory Hunt. Murat urgently reports Eugene's reckless victory to Napoleon near Sossano. Napoleon discusses luring Alvinci out with his generals in headquarters. Murat reveals Eugene's plan to head to Lake Garda, surprising Napoleon. Napoleon orders Backler to show the Brenner Pass on the map with urgency. Napoleon smiles wickedly as he predicts Alvinci will fall for the trap. Alvinci scolds Radetzky for returning alone after defeat at Bassano. Radetzky reports enemy heading toward Trambasol Plateau near Rivoli. Alvinci slams the table in defeat, knowing Rivoli marks their downfall. Alvinci orders the army to rush to Trambasol Plateau to block their path. October 4th, 1795, the decisive battle of the Italian campaign approaches at Rivoli. The eve of a crucial battle sets tension at Serbelloni Palace in Milan. Marie reacts with relief, fearing Milan might fall without victory. Marie worries deeply for Eugene fighting on the brutal battlefield. General Serrier warns the Bonaparte family to prepare for possible evacuation. Marie agrees to prepare for evacuation to avoid royal hostage dangers. Josephine reveals her pregnancy, hoping for Letizia's understanding and safety. Pauline coldly dismisses worries, confident Eugene and Napoleon will win. Alvinci orders finding a suitable battlefield at Trambasor Heights to fight. Weyrother struggles. Napoleon's irregular tactics defy traditional war math. Dannenfeld proudly describes the strength and variety of cavalry on guard. Weyrother admits the infantry is veteran but still slightly incomplete. Weyrother warns enemy speed surpasses them, threatening their strategy. Alvinci orders encirclement at Rivoli Gorge to trap the enemy troops. Enemy scouts bravely approach Austrian camp, testing defenses at night. Alvinci senses the enemy's fear and prepares an encirclement strike. Napoleon angrily reacts to enemy cavalry entering Trambasor first at night. Napoleon concentrates on tactical terrain around Rivoli to outsmart the enemy. Berthier questions if enemy trap is present. Napoleon confirms with pride. Napoleon reveals his son Eugene leads ahead with Lons, unknown to enemy. Colonel Weil pledges to catch up with Eugene and assure the operation's success. October 6, 1795, cavalry units surge toward Rivoli, marking a crucial moment. Eugene, newly 14, contemplates the morning dew at Rivoli Heights. Ippolito asks about about battle tactics, Eugene explains dispersed assembly movement. Lons arrives swiftly, warns of enemy reconnaissance near the Heights Gorge. Colonel Vile arrives with urgent news of enemy advance on Trambasor Heights. Vile reports enemy is aiming to encircle Rivoli via Trambasor Heights. Lons confirms reconnaissance reveals enemy cavalry near Monte Baldo Mountains. Lons suggests waiting on heights. Eugene warns enemy could cut off all paths. Eugene reasons enemy's tactics are risky but inevitable due to terrain constraints. Eugene decides to launch a surprise attack before enemy fully prepares. Eugene orders LaSalle and Engineer Chasseloup to reenact Arcole's bold breakthrough. Eugene commands the entire brigade to advance light and fast to the heights. Ippolito questions fighting with limited supplies. Eugene vows to seize enemy ammo. Hussar Major Schutz warns of a sudden attack from the heights. Schutz orders his men to charge with support from Liftai Regiment behind. Sal's cavalry descends from the heights, catching the enemy by surprise. Hussars fire pistols, but French artillery behind breaks their formation. LaSalle's successful cannon capture shatters a corner of the enemy's plan. Eugene and Lons prepare for the next phase with growing confidence. Unexpected success fuels morale. Eugene's forces gain crucial advantage. LaSalle's cavalry strikes the rear of 3 regiments with a saber charge. Champot warns LaSalle not to chase infantry too far amidst the charge. Chasseloup commands engineers to fire captured enemy cannons to confuse foes. Reptide tries to flee, but Captain Joubert kills him under LaSalle's watch. LaSalle debates sparing Reptide, but Joubert insists on ruthless efficiency. LaSalle orders his grenadier cavalry to regroup after the skirmish. Eugene watches the breakthrough, impressed but calculating the risk ahead. Eugene explains enemy conscripts lack professional resolve compared to French troops. Eugene orders Lon to stop chasing hussars to secure valley defense. Lon questions Eugene's unchanged encirclement despite prior losses. Alvinci orders a coordinated 5-pronged encirclement with precise tasks. Alvinci assigns frontline and flank disruption roles to his generals. Alvinci declares his own role guarding the rear and key mountain passes. Alvinci orders slow tightening of the net to encircle and annihilate enemy forces. Napoleon learns of first victory and smiles, waiting before joining battle. Napoleon points out enemy's weak encirclement point at Adige River to Messina. Messina recognizes Napoleon's plan to break enemy's external encirclement point. Napoleon asks for a volunteer to defend the plateau. Augereau steps up. Augereau vows to confront Alvinci's forces prepared and ready to fight. Napoleon orders Augereau to protect Eugene, beginning a deadly strategy race. General Rosselmini commands his troops to form a defensive square quickly. Austrian artillery positions themselves quickly as they prepare to fire at the enemy. Rosselmini hears distant cannon fire from the enemy's west bank position. Messina leads the vanguard cautiously, watching enemy movements from his position. Messina orders Colonel Lanfin to lead infantry to break the enemy's square formation. Colonel Lanfin rallies his regiment to advance boldly against the enemy square. Jean Lons leads his cavalry down the plateau, braving difficult mountain terrain. Lons orders riflemen to shoot as horsemen sustain heavy losses descending steep slopes. Rosselmini grows fearful as enemy cavalry charges break through his artillery lines. Provera commands a swift retreat southwards toward Mantua, shifting battle lines. Rosselmini agrees to the retreat, urging his army to avoid total annihilation. La Harpe's mountain troops block Rosselmini's retreat, meeting Lons on the slope. Sina joins Lons and La Harpe, completing the encirclement around the enemy. Rosselmini's 10,000 men face complete annihilation as they are surrounded and fired upon. Napoleon orders all troops to cross the Adige and conquer the Rivoli Gorge decisively. Last survivor of Rosselmini's defeated force falls as the final shot rings out. Lons watches the battlefield, his cavalry battered but victorious on the rocky plateau. Napoleon, Messina, and Lons prepare to continue their advance after crushing enemy forces. Eugene races across the plateau shouting commands to his 1,000 horse grenadiers. Eugene spots the enemy cavalry led by Prince Xavier approaching from the northwest. Eugene analyzes the enemy's formations and determines Alvinci's encirclement plan. Prince Xavier leads his 3,000 cavalry forward through the forest with cautious resolve. Xavier debates tactics with his lieutenant about the risks of an unsupported encirclement. Xavier orders his cavalry to load muskets and prepare for battle despite discomfort. Eugene's brigade rushes forward, throwing their grenades to disrupt the enemy cavalry formation. Xavier sees the grenades explode and orders an immediate retreat to avoid heavy losses. Eugene shouts orders to pursue and disrupt disrupt the enemy's planned junction with infantry. Eugene explains to Junot that their goal is only to buy time, not stop the enemy outright. Eugene views the battlefield like a detailed map to predict enemy movements precisely. Eugene reminds his brigade they fight to break the encirclement, not to win alone. The Horse Grenadier Brigade charges forward, their horses kicking up dust on the rocky ground. Xavier's cavalry retreats in disorder, startled by the shock of Eugene's grenade explosions. Eugene urges his brigade to maintain pressure and prepare to face the infantry next. He warns that the enemy's fear will cause delay, giving the French time to act decisively. Eugene orders his brigade to move northeast to intercept Baron Lauden's approaching division. The 1,000 strong Horse Grenadier Brigade prepares to halt Alvinzi's 50,000 men single-handedly. The cavalry moves into Rivoli Gorge, cautious of treacherous terrain ahead. Eugene warns his troops to reload and seize weapons from fallen enemies. Eugene's brigade prepares for battle as they near the approaching Lauden division. Eugene scoffs at the enemy commander's confidence on disadvantageous ground. Eugene's ambush hits the enemy's flank with sudden cavalry fire and chaos. Gunfire erupts as the small cavalry force uses up their scarce ammunition quickly. Eugene orders a retreat to the Rivoli Plateau as ammunition runs out. Lauden's forces rush to form battle lines but fail to block Eugene's breakout. Eugene's horse stumbles. He falls and loses consciousness at a perilous moment. Austrian Grenz skirmishers, led by Bahadur, ambush Eugene's disoriented brigade. Ippolito carries Eugene toward the center of the plateau as danger surrounds them. Junot boldly leads a charge through the enemy ranks to clear the path ahead. Bahadur commands Grenz infantry to prepare a deadly volley against attackers. Suddenly, French infantry appear, disrupting Austrian lines and turning the tide. Junot, Lasalle, and Champot charge fiercely into the skirmish with fierce determination. Eugene opens his eyes to see General Ozuro arriving to turn the battle's flow. Ozuro coldly vows no more rescues, his presence a decisive force against the enemy. Bahadur shouts defiant threats as Ozuro's soldiers aim their muskets at him. Ozuro's forces fire volleys, seizing the pivotal Rivoli Plateau ground. French hold the highlands as Napoleon's decisive stab on the enemy begins. General Lauden orders camp set up after night falls to preserve combat readiness. Messina prepares a surprise night ambush as Lauden's forces rest at camp. Messina orders his troops to open fire, hoping to destroy enemy units tonight. A white flag appears signaling surrender, raising Messina's cautious suspicion. Marmont fires shrapnel shells at the enemy, aiming to weaken their forces. Marmont plans to seize the Brenner Pass by inflicting maximum damage tonight. Commander Alvinci hears the night bombardment and senses impending disaster. Staff urgency grows as the shelling intensifies and the enemy closes in. Flames engulf the rear camp as fires spread from the incendiary shells blasts. Alvinci sees French forces bearing the tricolor flag advancing toward his camp. Realizing defeat, Alvinci orders a retreat to save headquarters and army remnants. Suddenly, Murat charges fiercely into the chaos, saber raised high in battle. Murat strikes Alvinci's neck with a saber as the commander tries to surrender. Murat crashes through the camp on horseback, trampling enemies as he roars. Alvinci, injured and fading, watches Murat's rampage as dawn begins to break. The night's battle closes, the Austrian blade is broken and Rivoli's fate sealed. The battle nears its end as dawn breaks far beyond the French lines. Napoleon commands his adjutant Sukoski to keep dispatching messengers urgently. Berthier reports the enemy's retreat, but Napoleon insists on pressing forward. Messina struggles through darkness as torches go out, the battlefield obscured. Messina notices a fire lighting the Rivoli Plateau, calling it a brilliant beacon. Brune urges Messina to order the charge as soldiers prepare under the fire's glow. Eugene and comrades discuss risks of night battle as fire lights the dark valley. Eugene orders Gino to start fires on the plateau, illuminating the battlefield. Napoleon smiles seeing the fires. Eugene's safety is a sign of hope. Napoleon looks east as the dawn breaks, signaling the battle's victorious end. Berthier reports complete victory, his strain easing amid triumphant cheers. Napoleon sees Eugene's cavalry rushing forward, the sun behind him shining bright. Eugene murmurs, "The sun of the revolution," as French cheers fill the air. The French army shouts victory cries, praising Napoleon and their hard-won success. Eugene approaches Napoleon, dismounting to greet him with pride and respect. Napoleon praises Eugene's leadership and declares Italy now fully under French control. Battle of Rivoli ends with a decisive French victory, crushing Austrian forces. Napoleon becomes known as the son of the revolution, shining shining over Italy's future. La Harpe greets Mantua's deputy commander, who surrenders the fortress. Minkwitz states his commander died at Arcole as hope fades for the garrison. Despite their losses, Mantua fortress defenders hope Alvingsy will return. La Harpe informs Minkwitz of northern Italy's total surrender to France. Minkwitz doubts France's lasting control but admits northern Italy's fall. La Harpe reveals his identity as Napoleon's trusted division commander. Minkwitz respects La Harpe's rank and asks about Napoleon's location. La Harpe hints Napoleon's secret destination, leaving Minkwitz curious. Junot arrives at Venice, guided by Venetian noble Battaglia on boat. Battaglia pledges Venice's cooperation while hiding internal tensions. Junot demands Venice dismantle its naval power as proof of submission. Battaglia contemplates sending message to Napoleon as tension mounts. Josephine travels toward Rome escorted by Colonel Dumas and soldiers. Josephine and Letizia discuss if Napoleon will come to Rome soon. Letizia confidently asserts Napoleon will seize Rome for glory and power. The women share wry laughter as Letizia worries about Josephine's child. Napoleon's mother and fiancé journey together during Italy's changed fate. Rome braces as 5,000 cavalrymen arrive from the north, tension high. Pope Pius VI and Cardinal Imola discuss the fragile situation with visible tension. Pope accepts defeat but fears loss of power and the end of papal states. Cardinal Imola worries about harsh French demands and the future of the Church. The Pope stresses preserving the Vatican and preventing the loss of papal sovereignty. The Pope reveals a valuable card, the presence of French troops inside Rome. Napoleon decides on Rome while questioning Marmont about Josephine's feelings. Marmont carefully answers Napoleon about Josephine, avoiding hurting anyone's feelings. Napoleon jokes about Josephine's selfishness. Messina comments quietly nearby. Eugene recalls his stepfather's ambition and his own conflicted feelings. Eugene notices the Pope greeting Napoleon with dignity atop a white horse. Napoleon announces he will protect the Vatican and its sovereignty in Italy. Napoleon and his commanders maintain polite protocol without submission to the clergy. Roman clergy and nobles show relief as the Papal States remain intact. Napoleon demands the Papal States and Romagna territory handover to France. The Pope complies with Napoleon but reveals Josephine's arrival near Rome. Napoleon startled, Eugene realizes his mother Josephine arrived ahead in Rome. Josephine arrives in Rome, awaiting Napoleon's return with anticipation. Napoleon prepares to meet Josephine, his mind torn between duty and love. Paris erupts as citizens celebrate news of Napoleon's battlefield victory. Danton questions formal victory reports as Auguste explains quicker soldier letters. Marceau reveals he learned of other news sooner than the official report. Desmoulins urges to use victory to solve financial deficits immediately. Danton warns Desmoulins war is unavoidable, though Desmoulins disagrees. Auguste praises Napoleon's miracles, blaming others for underestimating him. Danton insists he never doubted Bonaparte's skill or victory chances. Lafayette urges patience, wanting to wait for Salisetti's arrival first. Lafayette plans to secure Italy before striking Vienna to guard victory. Archduke Karl agonizes as Austrian forces defend Mainz from French attacks. Kirpin urges Karl to decide on Rhine offensive or strategic retreat to Vienna. Karl asks Kali about Napoleon's attack plans toward Vienna's defense. Kali warns Napoleon can strike unpredictably anywhere, not only Vienna. Leiberich insists abandoning Rhine to defend Vienna against the French threat. Karl orders Leiberich to hold Mainz and departs to Bavaria to prepare war. British Prime Minister Pitt discusses sending Talleyrand back to French Republic. Pitt suspects Talleyrand's network knows of France's victory in Italy. Pitt demands urgent Navy intelligence and laments possible Corsica loss. Pitt wonders where Napoleon will move next, hoping for naval intelligence. October 1795 marks the moment Napoleon's victory shakes all of Europe. Napoleon learns Josephine is pregnant while his mother arrives with her. Napoleon meets Dumas, a mixed-race officer guarding his family. Josephine warns Napoleon their child will be considered illegitimate. Letizia insists Napoleon must marry Josephine before the child is born. Napoleon demands to know where Eugene has gone, but he is missing. Eugene takes a breather outside while cavalry tents stand nearby. Adjutants debate whether to pacify Italy or strike Vienna directly. Chief Berthier orders preparations to handle both Italy and Vienna plans. Eugene reflects on Napoleon's uncertainty while Messina and Laon agree on Vienna. Eugene returns to Napoleon, who drinks wine as they discuss marriage. Napoleon reveals marriage will be registered simply, not blessed by Pope. Napoleon insists his march will strike Vienna directly, not linger in Italy. Eugene points out winter will block Alpine routes, challenging their plans. Napoleon corrects Eugene about enemy troop movements heading to Munich, not Vienna. Eugene exclaims in shock as Napoleon reveals his plan to use the Tyrol route. Napoleon commands preparations for wedding tonight and to march tomorrow. Napoleon prepares marriage despite hesitation, ready to claim child officially. Napoleon says the empire is waiting as he resolves to attack Vienna directly. Eugene doubts if deception can work on such a large scale in battle. Cardinal Imola arrives, exploring the army's true intentions discreetly. Cardinal Imola praises Eugene's famed exploits in the Italian campaign. Hippolyte whispers about the cardinal's audacity and future papacy. Josephine shines in her wedding dress, receiving warm admiration from all. Major LaSalle teases Hippolyte amid wedding festivities and light-hearted jabs. Napoleon announces the wedding ceremony completion and urges greetings to guests. Josephine smiles warmly, asking guests to care for her new husband and son. Napoleon orders Director Saliceti to send reinforcements to prepare for attack. Saliceti agrees reluctantly to deliver Napoleon's orders to Paris promptly. Napoleon declares the army will march directly to Padua without waiting for reinforcements. Napoleon orders La Harpe to advance alone into Tyrol, creating a deception of attack. La Harpe promises to succeed and jokes about possibly capturing Vienna himself. Napoleon warns La Harpe the Tyrol attack must look real but remain a feint. Deception aims to trick the enemy and allies, keeping Napoleon's true plan hidden. Eugene realizes Napoleon deceives even his own commanders to protect the plan. La Harpe laughs boldly, joking he might capture Vienna before the main attack. Napoleon prepares to depart, setting the stage for the decisive Austrian campaign. Hoche reads Napoleon's brief letter urging an all-out offensive now. Hoche questions Alpine army's deployment, suspecting a strike towards Vienna. Hoche explains a risky plan, attack Vienna while Austrian forces retreat domino. Hoche orders offensives in Flanders to open the route to Amsterdam. Hoche comforts his wife Desiree before leaving for the Flanders Grand Offensive. At Mainz, Moreau learns Austria's front weakens and seizes the chance to strike. Moreau shares plans to launch an all-out offensive to rescue Desaix. They realize Archduke Karl must defend Vienna, likely weakening the Rhine front. Moreau orders contact with Paris and a powerful combined offensive from all fronts. Napoleon rallies his cavalry, preparing a swift march aiming for Padua and Vienna. Generals debate the risks of attacking Vienna with only 50,000 troops. Eugene reminds them Austria lacks conscription, giving a chance to strike fast. Lens teases Eugene about family life and wives in their brief moment of banter. Eugene jokes about mother-in-law troubles, warning Lens to act fast after battle. Napoleon begins a deceptive lightning campaign aiming to catch Vienna unprepared. Napoleon and commanders discuss artillery supply and rapid attack logistics. Murat urges the cavalry forward. Speed is crucial for this battle. Polito questions if infantry can keep pace with the fast-moving cavalry. Eugene insists the offensive relies on arriving before a fight disrupts their plans. Napoleon's force marches with 50,000 troops towards Friuli for the offensive. Messina calls Eugene's cavalry to disrupt the enemy after artillery bombardment. Grenadiers charge through the disrupted Austrian line after artillery fire scatters them. Messina laughs as the army secures the Austrian supply depot in Udine. Archduke Karl debates Vienna's defense against the fast French advance. Despite orders, Archduke Karl plans to split forces to avoid encirclement. Ali warns Karl that Napoleon aims to attack divided forces, not fortresses. Karl resolves to disobey orders and concentrates all troops towards Vienna. At Leoben, Messina leads the easy capture of Austrian troops surrendering quickly. Napoleon arrives at Leoben hilltop and orders rest of the army to set camp. Polito questions the risk of advancing without any rear guards securing the path. Napoleon declares the historic 500-kilometer march is almost complete. Napoleon plans his decisive battle at Vienna, expecting enemy resistance. Napoleon warns that defenders will face battle before Vienna, not a siege. Eugene pledges revolution will topple the empire in Napoleon's name. Vienna trembles as the French army approaches, terror gripping the emperor. Count Wallace reports that Archduke Karl is rushing with 50,000 troops to Vienna. The emperor orders all border troops summoned to reinforce Vienna's defenses. Count Wallace sorrowfully reveals Austrian troops from the Turkish front are depleted. Reflecting on past wars and losses, Wallace laments the destruction of Austria's forces. The emperor mourns Louis XVI's death, suspecting the revolution forced his suicide. The emperor decides to mobilize the militia, conscripting 80,000 men to defend Vienna. In Vienna's mansions, music and art thrive amid war preparations and rising tension. Ludwig slams the piano, furious at conscription, wanting to flee the closing city gates. Johann warns Ludwig the gates are sealed. The French army is already outside Vienna. Militia rush outside as a whistle sounds, calling them urgently to their positions. Stryker sighs, fearing that Bonaparte's monster army will invade Vienna soon. Ludwig recalls Bonaparte's rise as a revolutionary hero who banished nobles in Italy. Johann warns that calling Bonaparte a hero is dangerous talk under military police watch. Imperial music director Haydn urges Ludwig to leave, fearing for his safety in Vienna. Beethoven resists but finally runs out to witness history amidst distant cannon fire. Archduke Karl commands his forces, ready to meet the French at Vienna's gates. Karl's troops prepare a wide line, ready to deliver concentrated artillery fire. French cavalry, led by Lannes, charge forward firing early Ferguson rifles to start battle. Archduke Karl faces an unusual tactic, launching a preemptive cavalry charge. Karl orders Hiller and Bellegarde to prepare defenses and send out cavalry swiftly. Hiller reviews his infantry line, ready to shoot as cavalry charges approach fast. Despite Hiller wounded, infantry opens fire. Cavalry prepares to charge from rear. Sudden cannon fire hits Rosenberg's cuirassiers from behind, causing panic. Karl suffers seizure and collapses from shock. Commanders rush to support him. Beethoven admires Napoleon's tactics while meeting young Clemens von Metternich. Clemens explains how militia on Schönbrunn Mountain could have halted Napoleon's artillery. Beethoven acknowledges brutal war tactics. Clemens smiles, knowing war is no art. French light infantry scatter, advancing in slow formation, surrounding Karl's elite troops. Leiberich tries to command the chaos, but the Austrian corps is breaking under pressure. Napoleon watches battle through telescope, ready to finish off the surrounded enemy force. Napoleon orders all cavalry to mount, including Eugene's horse grenadiers, for a final charge. Eugene leads his horse grenadiers, ready to unleash flying grenades in the assault. Grenadiers charge between French infantry lines, exploding flying grenades shower the enemy. Battle cries ring out amid the explosions as the French cavalry drives the enemy into retreat. Napoleon's maneuver secures victory, decisively ending the War of the First Coalition. The grand gates finally open, welcoming Napoleon and Eugene inside Vienna. Napoleon laughs, pleased as Eugene calls him father amidst their entrance. 2,000 cavalry and 5,000 elite infantry enter Vienna, surrounding them. The silent city watches cautiously as the conquerors pass through without protest. Veteran officers replace battle talk with reflection on their rise from humble beginnings. Ippolito encourages Tournay, reminding him they walk with giants on this path. Murat and Lannes arrive ahead, announcing the emperor's acceptance of surrender. Emperor Franz II appears pale and shaken, delegating power to Chancellor Thuget. Napoleon orders the emperor to appear personally or face consequences from his troops. The emperor, uneasy, greets Napoleon with a pale face in the palace's grand hall. Napoleon demands the dissolution of the Holy Roman Empire, shocking the nobles. Napoleon warns he is notifying, not negotiating, making the declaration clear to all. Eugene steps forward, speaking calmly to the emperor and nobles in flawless German. Eugene declares the French Republic kills kings but offers mercy by sparing the emperor. The emperor hesitates but is pressured by Eugene's cold words about revolution's ruthlessness. Eugene insists no time remains, warning the revolutionary army will not wait for pity. Facing silence, the emperor finally agrees to dissolve the Holy Roman Empire. Napoleon and Eugene stand victorious, having dismantled the centuries-old empire. December 12, 1795, marks the historic day Napoleon and Eugene ended the Holy Roman Empire. Metternich reads a French newspaper with a bitter smile in Vienna. Weinsberg explains the fast setup of the new printing press at Schönbrunn Palace. New state chancellor warns Vienna is occupied by Bonaparte's forces. Weinsberg questions why Napoleon Napoleon hasn't deposed the emperor after conquest. Metternich admits he is still young and inexperienced in politics. Heinsberg emphasizes Napoleon's inability to gain full authority without the emperor. Metternich explains the republic's weakness without a monarch to reward achievements. Weinsberg reluctantly admits giving anything to Bonaparte may help restore the empire. Empress Teresa weeps, fearing exile, and the emperor tries to comfort her. The emperor acknowledges he may lose Naples but vows to protect Austria and family. Napoleon's generals cheer in Schönbrunn after the empire's dissolution victory. Massena questions Eugene about Italy's fate after the empire's fall. Eugene reminds everyone Italy's reorganization requires directory approval. Eugene challenges Massena about completing Italy's reorganization step. Napoleon says Franz II remains, so they must negotiate with him as soldiers. Napoleon insists they follow the directory's rules despite dissolving the empire. On toasts to victory at Schönbrunn as the Napoleon Club cheers loudly. Victory brings hope and renewal, but the future remains uncertain for all. The cavalry charges along the icy coast toward Amsterdam's frozen fleet. French cavalry captures Dutch fleet trapped in ice in a shocking winter raid. Generals marvel as French horses capture a fleet, an astonishing feat of war. Pichegru resents Hoche's fame, claiming his own key role in Dutch victory. Pichegru's plan conceived the winter attack, but Hoche advanced on icy sea. Hoche receives news Bonaparte has seized Vienna, signaling war's end. Hoche urges surrender of Amsterdam as revolutionaries prepare to rise. French victory is declared as Flanders' front collapses and cheers erupt. Pichegru grits his teeth alone, bitter his victory was stolen by others. Moreau greets newly promoted Desaix outside ruined Mainz after long war. Desaix feels bitter about his release, but Moreau praises his rear guard defense. Moreau explains Paris hesitated to recognize their defense, focusing on victories. Moreau reveals Bonaparte approved Desaix's promotion after Vienna's capture. Archduke Karl learns the empire is dissolved amid crushing French victories. Karl refuses to accept defeat, wanting to await Turkish reinforcements. Metternich cruelly reveals all enemy forces, including Turkish, were destroyed. Metternich speaks of a new true empire to replace the dissolved Holy Roman Empire. Karl accepts defeat but vows to rebuild the empire under his brother's reign. In Vienna, a passionate man plays piano, capturing the room's attention. Hippolyte jokes about Mozart, but Eugene reminds him Mozart is long gone. Eugene reflects on Mozart's legacy and the rising genius Beethoven. Saliceti calls to pause the performance and resume treaty discussions. Saliceti and Marquis Gallo exchange veiled threats masked as conversation. Debate over Venice's fate amid shifting power in Italy after Austria's loss. Saliceti declares France's annexations and hands treaty to Barthélemy for signing. Barthélemy hands treaty to Marquis Gallo and Cobenzl, inviting their signatures. Cobenzl refuses to sign, disgusted by the paper, causing stunned silence. Hippolyte quietly remarks on Cobenzl's stalling tactics during tense moments. Eugene coldly denies any chance of renewed war except with England now. Suddenly, Napoleon appears, shattering the palace porcelain and commanding attention. Napoleon challenges Cobenzl, demanding a signature or facing Austria's destruction. Marquis Gallo calms Cobenzl and insists the prolonged fight serves no purpose. Marquis Gallo picks up treaty from the floor and signs it on the emperor's behalf. Marquis Gallo formally recognizes Napoleon's victory, ending the anti-French alliance. Saliceti writes his name and hands Napoleon the pen to sign the final treaty. Napoleon signs the treaty without hesitation, confirming his name and victory. The First Revolutionary War ends in 1796 with the Treaty of Schönbrunn, signed in Napoleon's name. Paris erupts in celebration as citizens toast victory in early February. Rector Danton watches the celebration, noting the true victor is Bonaparte. Deglandine celebrates the revolution's triumph, while Danton corrects her. Danton asserts Bonaparte alone ended the war and defeated the empire. Fireworks explode outside, startling Danton as he questions the cost. Barras and Frerin arrive, discussing celebration and political intents. Danton reveals his formal attire is for General de Gaumier's memorial. Barras predicts Danton will lose the upcoming council election in September. Frerin warns food scarcity and soaring prices fuel royalist hopes. They discuss political divides and rural kings' supporters exploiting gaps. Barras and Frerin propose alliance to counter royalists in the upcoming election. Politicians calculate power, even as the public celebrates victory naively. In Milan, the Marseille Bank gains vast influence under Eugene's control. Nicholas explains securing Genoa will open West Mediterranean trade routes. Gannett reports President Damas must leave leave Milan to escort Madame Josephine. Josephine and Marie travel to Vienna for the victory reception hosted by Napoleon. Josephine, pregnant, travels by carriage with Marie-Therese and Hortense to Vienna. Marie accidentally calls Josephine mother, sparking a blush over marriage talk. Hortense declares Marie her new sister-in-law with a joyful embrace. Napoleon's victory declared throughout Italy as fireworks light the Milan sky. The fate of Italy is decided in Napoleon's dressing room. Napoleon frowns at the burden of the military governor role in Italy. Napoleon fears being tied down in Italy will limit his future options. Jean recommends appointing Serrier over loyal Marceau for deputy. Napoleon jokes Marceau will assist their son, lightening the mood. Marmont explains dividing Milan, Venice, and Tuscany into 3 republics. Napoleon remarks Melzi d'Arel will mourn division, not unification. Jean adds the republics will form the joint Italian Executive Council. Napoleon confirms the Italian Executive Council's chairman will be father. Napoleon directs focus to the Kingdom of Naples and its importance. Napoleon and officers mourn General de Gaumier's death recently. Napoleon orders a condolence letter and payment in de Gaumier's honor. Napoleon insists on suppressing Naples due to British threat in Italy. Eugene warns Venice will rebel. Junot is unfit for the task. Junot bristles at Eugene's harsh critique on his abilities. Napoleon asks if Augereau or Messina should lead the campaign. Eugene advises retaining Augereau and Messina close, sending La Harpe. Napoleon approves sending La Harpe and buttoning his formal attire. Napoleon praises Eugene's outfit as they prepare for victory reception. In just 10 minutes, a vast Italian strategy took final shape. Napoleon's family readies for Vienna, celebrating Italy's new fate. The scene closes on the dressing room as Italy's fate is sealed. Grand banquet fills Schönbrunn Palace to mark France's Italian victory. Officers and soldiers celebrate in the back garden with cheers and laughter. Pauline teases Eugene as she slyly takes his hand, drawing him away. Junot jokes about Eugene's sobriety while Hippolyte warns him to behave. Pauline's presence excites the soldiers, but Eugene discourages drinking. Junot ribs Hippolyte about his flirting while Hippolyte tries to stay quiet. Marat boldly asks Pauline to dance, but she declines politely. Pauline secretly pulls Eugene away from the noisy crowd toward quiet trees. Pauline whispers suggestively as Eugene recalls their past encounter. Eugene stands quietly, feeling the warmth of Pauline's lips still on his. Startled, Eugene remembers the banquet and hurries back toward the celebration. Napoleon holds Josephine's hand proudly as he addresses the gathered nobles. Josephine embraces her swollen belly, proud and happy amidst the grand event. Napoleon announces Italy's liberation, declaring a new era to those present. Eugene watches the historic moment quietly, absorbing the truth of liberation. Marie-Therese approaches Eugene, dressed for the first time in a formal gown. Marie-Therese mentions Pauline, hinting at the complicated feelings in Eugene. Marie insists Eugene must dance with her to honor Vienna's traditions. Habsburg Imperial Orchestra begins, signaling Eugene and Marie's dance. The day marks Eugene's first social dance and a reunion with Pauline. Empress Catherine too walks the palace, discussing her legacy with Suvorov. Kutuzov stands at attention as Catherine voices concern over internal rebellion. Catherine instructs her generals on loyalty as Poland's turmoil fades into past. Alexander listens respectfully as Catherine declares him the true heir to Russia. Crown Prince Pavel watches brutal military drills led by his stern advisor. Pavel angrily demands stronger forces and harsher control of serfs to stop uprising. Alexander arrives and commands cleanliness after his father's violent outburst. Elizaveta asks Alexander to move away, but he refuses to leave his father's side. Alexander comforts young Elena with a vow to protect their family and Russia. Alexander pledges to uphold Russia's strength against all threats, including Bonaparte. Russia prepares for turmoil as the empire braces for revolution's harsh winds. Catherine entrusts Suvorov with the fate of Russia and its coming trials. Pavel's volatile command reflects his fear and frustration over France's threat. Alexander turns away from his father's cruelty, seeking peace from the chaos. Elizaveta greets Alexander as he returns home, weary from the day's burdens. Elizaveta advises Alexander to leave Kachina, but he refuses to abandon hope. Alexander comforts his sister Elena and promises protection from all dangers ahead. He vows to defend Russia and his family, even from the revolution's deadly threat. Nelson commands the West Indies fleet, confronting shifting colonial conflicts. Sidney Smith delivers hard truths about colonial struggles to Admiral Nelson. Nelson learns learns that the slave rebellion led by Toussaint defies British control. Nelson defies Spain as its fleet invades British waters, leading fierce clashes. Nelson orders the seizure of Spanish ships and commands news to reach London fast. Prussia, General Blücher protests the truce, confronting the Crown Prince. Crown Princess Louise advises patience until a stronger army is ready to fight France. Blücher urges military reform, pressing the Crown Prince for immediate action. The Crown Prince considers reform ideas to strengthen Prussia against France. Blücher suggests recruiting battle-proven instructors to reform the army. The Crown Prince agrees this plan is feasible and asks for specific talent suggestions. Blücher names Scharnhorst, a capable officer, to lead the new military officers. In India, Arthur and William Wellesley face an intense battle against Mysore troops. Arthur worries about Mysore troops using French guns supplied by the dissolved company. Arthur plans to create and train local collaborator forces following British strategy. Arthur charges with the 33rd Regiment, leading a bold assault on Mysore forces. Stephen Lushington confronts Prime Minister Pitt with urgent warnings about war. Lushington boasts about the company's control of Indian ports and trade profits. He scolds Parliament's failures and highlights Britain's waning allies in Europe. Lushington warns Pitt that naval victories remain elusive despite sea control. Pitt begrudgingly accepts Lushington's points and promises to consider them. Lushington's directors debate Pitt's youth and the kingdom's past challenges. Baring reveals to Lushington that true power comes from financial control of Eugene. Baring discusses Eugene Beauharnais' role as a financial prodigy linked to Bonaparte. Lushington probes Baring about previous bond trading links with the Recamier Bank. Baring confirms partnership with Eugene ceased when war started, speaks cautiously. Lushington suggests a deal leveraging Bonaparte and Eugene's influence. They agree on a secret pact involving Spain to damage the American rebels. Lushington promises company support to shield Baring from government risks. Baring assures a favorable outcome, confident in the covert arrangement. East India Company's elite plot to use France and Spain against the U.S. Baring, a master merchant, prepares to introduce Eugene into their covert plans. The company's merchants watch Pitt leave, doubting his strength against France. Lushington plans to watch the situation, considering replacing Pitt if needed. Talleyrand discusses failing negotiations amid Europe's fast-changing politics. Baring reveals a secret plan and hints at key meetings in France soon. Baring aims to meet Lafayette and Eugene Bonaparte to discuss alliances. In Frankfurt, Meyer and Nathan Rothschild plot business in the new political landscape. Nathan learns of Bonaparte's rising influence and the financial opportunities it brings. Solomon arrives with military funds from Duke Wilhelm and warns about cautious investments. Nathan vows to invest wisely despite rivalries, embracing profit over politics. Inside the secret Freemason lodge, leaders prepare to shape the new world order. Lafayette urges Kleber to return to fight ongoing rebellions in Italy. Lafayette praises revolution's success and rallies members to complete their plan. Freemasons praise truth and prepare to overthrow monarchy for a new world. The Freemasons move history's hidden hands behind the American and French revolutions. Eugene acquires the Bank of Italy, planning to control all of Italy's finance. Luigi Corvetto pledges support, welcoming Eugene at the historic Bank of St. George. Eugene explains the strategic value of Genoa as France's new outer harbor. Trade goods arrive in Genoa, led by Etienne Clary and Captain Surcouf. Surcouf notes the Ligurian Republic hides French military control over Genoa. French fleet's Mediterranean presence strengthens Genoa's ties to Napoleon. Genoa's Jacobin Prime Minister Buonarroti celebrates the Bank of Italy's birth. Buonarroti honors Napoleon and Eugene, proclaiming Genoa's allegiance. Genoese leaders denounce Austria and foreign threats, pledging loyalty to Napoleon. Buonarroti declares only Napoleon can protect Genoa's peace and future. The Genoese pledge allegiance to Eugene, Napoleon's adopted son and banker. Nicolas Surcouf reflects on the rising power of the Beauharnais cartel in Italy. Eugene's investments signal a bold expansion across the fragmented Italian states. Napoleon's control spreads through proxies like Eugene and naval captains like Surcouf. Genoa's oligarchy replaced by loyal pro-French Jacobins controlling the city. Eugene cartel represents the rising financial force reshaping Italian politics. Napoleon's dominance in Italy solidified by allies ruling republics and banks. Surcouf commands the Mediterranean fleet supporting Napoleon's Italian campaign. Damas oversees expanding trade goods, fueling the economic growth of Genoa. Italy's future now shaped by Eugene's financial power backed by Napoleon's army. Eugene jokes with Ippolito about his name and the breadth of their ambitions. Eugene briefs his executives on Italy's complex political and military situation. Jean explains Venice's strong independence and the impending rebellion risk. Napoleon's control is firm, with old aristocrats leading rebellions, not the masses. Eugene warns the executives about Venice's fragile islands near the Ottoman Empire. Napoleon's army prepares for Naples, where British influence still holds strong. Jean outlines a plan to seize Naples with minimal troops using local nobles. Eugene reveals the plan to dominate Italy through economic power, surprising DuPont. Eugene tasks DuPont with producing nitrogen for gunpowder and fertilizer factories. Jean explains the importance of nitrogen in making saltpeter and fertilizers. DuPont learns how fertilizer and gunpowder production can be combined efficiently. Eugene instructs on turning compost into bank clients with fertilizer sales. Kahlo worries about the bank's debts and the challenges of seizing Italy financially. Jean plans to extract millions from Venice and Naples after their occupation. Kahlo feels overwhelmed but accepts the overwhelming task of expanding banking power. Kahlo questions the choice of Genoa as the financial base over Milan and Turin. Damas notes Genoa's uncertain loyalty. Eugene plans annexation after clergy acts end. Polito applauds Eugene's strategic vision for Italy's financial future. Eugene stresses developing independent financial power separate from Napoleon's peak. Eugene claims seizing Italy's economic might is just the beginning of greater power.